BCP Council, adjourned from the 24th of November 2020, and also a welcome to the press and members of the public who are viewing the live stream of this meeting. I will now set out the housekeeping arrangements for the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules for speaking. Please only speak when invited to by the chairman. Always turn on your video function when invited to speak. Please state your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Some people may need to dial into the meeting and will therefore not have the benefit of the video. Please mute your microphone when you are not talking. If you would like to speak on an item, please do so by utilising the raise your hand feature in the bar at the top of the Teams window. As a reminder, don't forget to lower your hand once you have finished speaking. The messaging bar should not be used unless you are raising a point of order or providing the wording for a motion. Please remember that this panel is visible to all and subject to public information requests. Where there appears to be a consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension from that motion. If you wish to vote against the motion, please type against in the message panel, otherwise the motion will be agreed without a vote. The Chief Executive will indicate who has voted against. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out in the usual way by a roll call, asking for a response of for or against or abstain from each councillor. A recorded vote requires the support from a quarter of the members present. If a request for a recorded vote is made, unless I have already received notification of the request and 25% of the meeting have already intimated they are in support, a roll call will be taken up to the point that a quarter of the councillors present at the meeting support that request. Should my connection be lost during the meeting, the Vice Chairman will take the chair until my connection resumes. And finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and that mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you, members. Apologies. Chief Executive, do we have any apologies for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Andy Jones and Councillor Mark Robson.
Thank you. We'll start this evening's procedures then with agenda item 9. Now, I seem to recall that agenda item 9 was proposed and seconded before we adjourned the meeting, but I wonder if I can call on Councillor Mellor to just recap on the item for the benefit of members, as it's been a few days since we last met. Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, so this is effectively a calendar of meetings that has been put forward. I believe, Chair, we did also propose and second an amendment to item C, which read C, giving authority to the chairman of a licensing committee to agree and review dates. Perhaps Democratic will confirm that. If not, I'm happy to move that amendment again. Councillor Broadhead's seconded. Relatively simple, Chair. I'm very happy to move forward to discussion and then the vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mellor. Can I Councillor Broadhead, please, that you're happy to second the motion?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead.
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you.
Are there any members wishing to speak on this item, please? I'll just give it a few more moments. There doesn't appear to be any members wishing to speak. In which case, can I move to the vote, please? Are there any members wishing to vote against agenda item 9 proposal? No, in which case then members will take that vote unanimous. Moving on then to agenda item 10, notice of motions in accordance with procedure 12. A Islamophobia definition. Can I call upon Councillor Mellor, please, to present the motion?
Thank you again, Chair, and I'm very pleased to be bringing forward this motion tonight. The purpose of which is very straightforward. There is no place in this council for prejudice, discrimination or bigotry of any kind. It's a clear priority of this council to promote equalities, and one that I was delighted to evidence by bringing forward Councillor Bobby Dove as our lead member focusing on equalities. And I'm also delighted with the start we've made in this area. Something I'm pleased, Chair, is that the first motion I bring to this chamber as leader of the council is a cross-party one that I bring alongside Councillor Chris Rigby. Chairman, I need to say, in equivalent provisions within the Constitution, through you, Chair, and with the consent of the council, I wish to move the altered motion, which I circulated to all members of the council by email earlier today, as follows. This council resolves to A. Adopt the widely and nationally adopted definition of Islamophobia. For councillors' information and ease of reference, set out below is the all-party parliamentary group definition of Islamophobia. Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. B. Ensure that all councillors and officers undertake regular race equality training, which will include, as a minimum, a working understanding of our public sector equality duty and unconscious bias. C. To reaffirm BCP Council's commitment to eliminate discrimination, to lead on building positive relationships across our communities, tackling prejudice and ensuring the public sector equality duty remains at the heart of decision making so that fairness is central to all that we do. Thank you very much for the people who have worked on that motion with us, and we're delighted to bring it forward as a cross-party piece. And on that, I now look to Councillor Chris Rigby to second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Councillor Rigby, please. Councillor Chris Rigby.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be able to second this motion as amended and outlined by Councillor Mellor there. I'm really proud of how this motion's come to be and that it is actually really, truly a cross-party piece of work. Originally, we were going to have 3 motions which were going to be submitted along similar lines, and I think that's quite a unique situation to be in. So to have this, my motion, combined with the Conservative one is really great, as some things really are beyond politics. I want to thank Councillors Dove, Mrs Green, Earl, Slade, Baron, Farquhar, who all had some role in the motion coming together and all worked on the other ones which were coming forward. The headline grabbing part of this is the adoption of the definition of Islamophobia, which probably comes far too late, and it's why point 3 is equally important, which is reaffirming our commitment to eliminate discrimination by developing positive communities and tackling prejudice in all forms. Personally, I don't know what it's like to face discrimination for something which is not my choice, and I've no idea how that experience affects those that suffer this from birth, which is why it's incredibly important to do what we can to be a good ally and use our positions to do what we can to end prejudices and protect the rights of those individuals who are subject to them. And that's why today I'll call on every councillor to vote for this motion and show that BCP Council takes all prejudice and racism extremely seriously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Anne Filer, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And it's just over a year since we had the motion in Council about the definition of anti-Semitism. And I was really disappointed that some people actually disagreed with that motion, and that also I'm disappointed that we should need tonight's motion. When I was mayor, Mayor of Bournemouth, that was some 10 years ago, I invited every religion that I could think of to take the prayers before meetings, and it was very interesting. We had a Buddhist monk, we had every denomination of Christianity, we had including the Muslim, the leader of the Muslim prayers in the mosque, which is next door to Bournemouth Town Hall, and it was really interesting. We have so many people in our area now. When I was growing up in Bournemouth, I, who was Jewish, was very unusual. Now in Bournemouth, we have people of every different creed, they come from many different countries, they worship in different ways, people who love in different ways, people who live in different ways, and people who look different, all different to one another. And it really doesn't matter. As Councillor Chris just said, how you're born is how you're born. How you choose to live is your matter. It's not the business of any of the rest of us. I really feel that tonight we've got to be unanimous. There can be nobody who can speak against this, can think that it's right, that Islamophobia is right, that the fear or the anxiety or worry about people who are Muslim is right. It's wrong. We represent everybody in this area, all of us. None of us can say we know our residents. We don't know our residents. We know some of our residents, but we don't know them all. And I would like tonight to be a unanimous vote, nobody voting against, and give out the message that this council has absolutely no prejudice and respects and welcomes everybody to live in our area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Filer. Before I move on to the next speaker, I've been advised that as an altered motion was presented to full council this afternoon, the full council just needs to consent to debating to that altered motion. It's not a vote. We just need people to agree that we're happy that we're debating the altered motion.
Agreed.
Can I ask if there's any?
Agreed.
Agreed.
I think that sounds that most members are happy with that. So if you'll allow me to move on, then I will call upon Councillor Jude Butt, please. Councillor Butt. Councillor Butt.
Hello, it's Councillor Daniel Butt here. Judy Butt's having some technical issues. Can you give us one moment, please?
Okay, Daniel, thanks for letting me know. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Farquhar, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd just like to affirm that I'm in full support of this amended motion, and that I was honoured to be a part of adding and contributing to its creation.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Jude Butt, are you able to
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. My technology knowledge is nant. I shut myself off by mistake. Thank you for allowing me back in. I'd just like to ask Mr. Chairman if we could have a recorded vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. Right. I think I'll deal first of all with Councillor Trent, who's asked to speak. So, Councillor Trent, please.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support this motion. I think it's long overdue, and it's a pity we didn't deal with it all on time. I must admit that I've experienced firsthand as a witness of the kind of behaviour that can take place, and there was a spout of bad behaviour after the referendum, and suddenly it seemed to give a lot of people an excuse to be racist in one form or another. And we are coming to another time which may provoke one or two people to act like complete idiots and use it as an excuse for racism. And I would very much like to think that we not only vote for this and support this, that those who are in a position to do so actually try to organise and support events that demonstrate the diversity of cultures and religious practices we've got in the town. I think Councillor Fowler made a mention of multicultural prayers, and I think that is links in that direction are very important. You know, we need to engage all the various religious communities, and I really hope that with our the lead team for culture and so forth, that we actually people work on positive events to engage the different cultures and religions, and to demonstrate that we're not just talking the talk, we're going to walk the walk. So it's just my appeal that we not only support this, but we also do something proactive to demonstrate the benefit of the tolerance that I think we should all be supportive of.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. I did have a request to speak from Councillor Nicola Green. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. Following on from last September's council meeting, when I proposed the motion to adopt the IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism, I was very keen to second this linked and subsequent motion, which provides parity for the APPG definition relating to Islamophobia. However, Councillor Rigby came up with a better idea, and I was delighted to step aside and acknowledge the importance of this being a genuine cross-party initiative. Islamophobia is a pernicious manifestation of prejudice in our society. It marginalises those who are different and seeks to pile justification upon discrimination. It has no place in our modern world, and it has no place in this council. It's entirely appropriate for us this evening to make this clear and unambiguous statement. I'm delighted that this is the first motion to come from this council under a new administration, and it's fitting to do so as we move into the season of festivities in the spirit of cross-party cooperation. I fully support this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Julie Bagwell. Councillor Bagwell.
Chair, I welcome this thing going to full council tonight, and all of us supporting it. I hope we all do, because for me, we'll be able to start embracing the gypsy and travellers that we have in our communities, and the work that Kushti Bok do in trying to get the message out there that travellers are a definition and have been here for hundreds of years, and so that will be really good. Thank you.
I have no further speakers at the moment. I'll just give it a few more seconds just in case anybody wishes to speak. No, in which case then, can I hand over to the Chief Executive to conduct the poll for the request for a recorded vote? Chief Executive, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a request for a recorded vote. What I intend to do, if I read through the names of the councillors in alphabetical order, if I get to 18 people saying for, then we will move to a recorded vote. So I'll go through the list until we get to 18. I'll stop when we get to 18 because that would give the requisite number. So Councillor Hazel Allen.
Chair, I don't see anybody dissenting to a recorded vote. So should we just?
If everybody's,
we've got Chair, if I may, we've got two options. If nobody's dissenting to the motion, isn't it recorded by the fact that we're unanimous? Or
thank you, Councillor Mellor. Right, members, I do have a point of order first of all for from Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Farquhar.
Should we vote on it? He's muted. Fuck's sake.
Sorry, Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the point of order, I'm sure I don't need to highlight the Constitution to yourself and the legal officers there, and I welcome the suggestion from Councillor Mellor. However, the Constitution is quite clear as regards the requirement for 25% of the councillors to actually confirm that a recorded vote can go ahead. In the virtual world, this will be the first recorded vote which we've done, to my recollection, and it may well be that there are difficulties with the communication with chat bars, etc. So some councillors may well actually miss out on what's being requested of them. So I would suggest that we proceed as per the Constitution, with respect, Chair.
Chair, at your discretion.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. I tend to agree with the leader. To be honest, if there's nobody, if there are members if there are any members who wish to vote against the request for a recorded vote, could you type in the taskbar, please, because it will save a lot of time. Another option I've just been advised that we might be able to do. Are there 18 people who would like to type agreed in the taskbar, please?
Chair, can I just bring something to your attention? Someone's got some mics on, and as a result, there's been some inappropriate language coming out across the airways. I think it needs to be addressed, and an apology to everyone who would be listening to this at home. It's completely inappropriate to be hearing stuff like that at a council meeting.
Councillor Dove, I fully agree with your sentiments, and can I just reiterate what I said at the start of the meeting in terms of the housekeeping, that if you are not speaking, can you please turn your microphones off?
18. Yep. Thank you, Chairman. We have more than 18 agreed, so we're doing a recorded vote. Could I suggest again, is there anybody that is going to vote against the motion or abstain? I could record all 72 councillors that are present as voting for, if that speeds the process.
Members, if members would be kind enough to type in the taskbar if they wish to vote against the motion, it would help proceedings this evening.
I'm not seeing any votes against, Chairman, but I do see two hands raised from Councillor Allen and Councillor Lawton.
So, Councillor Lawton, please.
Apologies, Chairman. I put my hand up by mistake.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. And yeah, Councillor right, Alan has also said a mistake. Okay.
Right. Chairman, I suggest we record all 72 councillors present as having voted in favour of the motion. Therefore, it's counted unanimously, but also a recorded vote.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Right, we will now move on to item B, fireworks. Can I call upon Councillor Lewis, please, to present the motion? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Well, for many years now, there have been weeks of firework explosions from October through to mid-November. And while fireworks are used to celebrate events and can bring much enjoyment, they can also cause significant anxiety and fear for many pet animals, as well as wildlife and farm animals. Not only is psychological distress involved, but animals can also cause themselves injuries when running away from the noises. According to surveys, at least 45% of the pet dog population react fearfully to fireworks. And given that their hearing is remarkably stronger than ours, it means that loud noises that are tolerable to us can be very uncomfortable for them. Loud, quick bursts can cause irreversible ear damage, including loss of hearing, Horses are even more likely to be affected by fireworks than dogs. So this is not only about animals though, as there is very clear evidence that firework noise has severe and distressing effects on military veterans and others suffering with PTSD, and also people with a range of health conditions, while some children on the autistic spectrum can be also disturbed by them. For some military veterans, the noise of level of fireworks sold for some military veterans, the noise of fireworks rocks their nervous system. Reducing the maximum noise level of fireworks sold to the public to 90 decibels would be of tremendous benefit, as at present the legal limit of fireworks is 120 decibels. But according to the Royal National Institute of the Deaf, a few seconds of standing close to fireworks of 120 decibels can potentially cause permanent hearing damage and tinnitus. So this motion is from the RSPCA and it's been sent to me by some of my residents. There are 4 parts to the motion, each of which would contribute to prevent or at least reduce the risk of fireworks causing distress, injury or anxiety to people as well as animals. Thank you. Oh, and could we have the vote recorded, please, Chair?
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I second in Councillor Trent. Councillor Trent?
Yes, I'm pleased to second this. Like Councillor Lewis, I had lots of emails from, including ones that I discovered late in the day that had actually been put by the system into the junk mail folder, and I'd already started to feel that things were going too far on the firework front. The fireworks I experienced, and it must have been over a 2 or 3 week period, were well over the basic fireworks that we grew up with. Some of them seemed to be industrial scale sort of explosives used. They would deafen the likes of me inside a house, let alone outside. And I do strongly believe that we should limit the availability of some of the more heavy duty fireworks. Some of them may just about be justified in a public display in a large space, but the thought of cats and wildlife, where I live, we've got a lot of wildlife living in and around. We've got badgers and foxes and goodness knows what. And the effect of these fireworks on any creature has got to be horrendous. So I fully support the motion, and you know, I'm grateful for the people that actually sent me the emails and the links to the motion. You know, it's a standardized motion, and I think it's actually very reasonable, and we should be fully supporting it. So I hope we can all support this.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Simon Ball. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. It was just wanted to query the last line of the motion, as I have printed in front of me on the agenda, to encourage local suppliers of fireworks to stock quieter fireworks for public display. Should that be for public display or for private use? I'm just like to query that with Councillor Lewis.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think because it is actually for public display, but I think to stock quieter fireworks for private use would be absolutely essential, because it's more important to have the quieter fireworks in people's back gardens, or you know, that can be sold to the public, than to be on a public display. So I would have said that you know, to encourage local suppliers of fireworks to stock quieter fireworks for private use would really be more important.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Farquhar, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fully in support of this particular motion. I'd urge all councillors here to support it and vote for it to go forward. Just a couple of observations. Many councillors here, like myself, will be involved with the homeless and will also be involved with a variety of other charities.
Does it says public use, does it?
Will be involved with a variety of charities and will have come across veterans, not necessarily of engagements in their past life, but suffering from PTSD, whereby these loud noises are an absolute detrimental effect upon them. So from the animal perspective, we have to recall that this is to be a control to notify the public of fireworks which are actually being used at public displays on council land, so that the residents and the neighbours in that area can take the precautions in good time. It is not in any way, shape or form trying to restrict people when their celebrations, etc. It's simply a measure for the council to lead the way, to show respect for not only the animals, both wild and domestic, and pets, but also for vulnerable adults and vulnerable people who are distressed at this time of year, particularly this time of year, whereby it goes on for a long time. So I'd appeal to all councillors to join me and vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Before I move on to further speakers, advice from officers, so if you just bear with me a moment, please. Councillor Lewis, did you wish to make an amendment to your notice of motion? If so, could you type the amendment in the taskbar, please?
Well, I was going to point out, Chair, that the third part of the motion is encouraging people to write to the UK government, urging them to introduce legislation to limit the maximum noise level of fireworks to 90 decibels for those sold to the public for private displays. So apparently one should apply to the government to introduce the legislation.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis, but my understanding was Councillor Ball asked a question whether it should be private or public sales.
Yes, I can do that as well. I just wanted to sort of clarify about the third point. But yes, sure, I'll do that too. Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes, I do, Chairman. I thought we were in council, not in committee. Therefore, having questions or allowing someone to speak more than once is against the rules of debate. So I'd like some clarification on yourself. And as we are sort of stuck here waiting for Councillor Lewis, I think we need to continue with the motion as it is and then proceed, if we may.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Right, members, my understanding is that Councillor Lisa Lewis has changed public to private.
Chair, I did raise a point of order there.
Yes, one moment, Councillor Anderson. Yes, Councillor Anderson, I did ask clarification from Councillor Lewis.
Sorry, Chair, it's
with
Councillor
regards
Butt
to
speaking. It was Councillor Butt speaking, not Anderson, Mark Anderson. I did put a point of order in the messaging, but I wasn't answered.
no, I was dealing with the point of order from Councillor Mark Anderson, Councillor Butt.
Okay, that's fine. I'll wait. Thank you.
I'll come back to you. Yes, I asked for clarification, Councillor Anderson, and we've got that now from Councillor Lewis. Councillor Butt, your point of order, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was just that I don't think this motion is very clear. I think it needs to be rewritten in regards to the public and private displays. It just doesn't seem clear to everyone, be it public or members. I think Councillor Lewis needs to go back and rethink this one. I just don't think it's a clear enough document there. Fireworks displays, they should be all of them, private or public, should be quiet. These quieter fireworks, not just public displays or private. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. I'm not quite sure where that point of order sits with the council's right. Let's try and move on here. Right, Councillor Lewis has amended as I said, the fireworks for private display, not public display. So can I ask if there are any other further speakers, please, on this motion? Councillor Dwayne Farr, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've listened to the debate. Some very good points made. However, I find myself torn. I was concerned about the animals. I love wildlife and pets, cats and dogs, and also the concern with some veterans with PTSD could maybe be affected with the loud bangs of the fireworks, and other people with Asperger's, etc. But I'm concerned about the libertarian aspects. Being seen as killjoys, banning things, it doesn't really sit well with me. That's where I'm at with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Councillor Richard Burton, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm speaking to the spirit of the motion that we have in front of them. I'm speaking to somebody here who's always loved fireworks. I studied chemistry as a student because probably due to my love of fireworks. And they're used a lot by not just an our tradition, they're used in traditions other than the Christian tradition to celebrate lots of things at this time of the year. However, I do very much note that fireworks have become a problem. The loudness of fireworks have increased. I personally have a dog who's terrified by them, and knowing when fireworks are going off would very much help manage that in my household. So I would, on a whole, very much support this motion. I think it will help people continue to enjoy fireworks in a quieter way, so people can get their enjoyment, but would reduce the stress to both people and animals in the area.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Judes Butt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yes, there's. I've reread the motion. I have it in front of me, and the putter of the motion is Councillor Lisa Lewis, but there seems to be some confusion with regard to the understanding of the motion by Councillor Lewis, but it seems somebody's advised us that it came directly from the RSPCA. It is the last item, which has been alluded to already, to encourage local suppliers of fireworks to stock quieter fireworks for public display. Clearly, local suppliers would probably not be supplying for public display. We'd probably go elsewhere. So that really should read private, as has been said. I think that I'd certainly go along with the spirit of it. I think it's not as clear as it could be, and certainly not as strong as it could be. And it may be that this council feels that actually perhaps we need to get something that we can all agree to, and that's something that is providing for all those people involved. Obviously, there's the business community. We have wonderful fireworks each year for tourists, etc. But then again, there's all my residents who found November a very difficult month, as I'm sure all our residents did, and we had lots of complaints with upsetting dogs and those people with protected characteristics, etc., who found them very, very, very disturbing. So I'd really like something that we could actually send up, which everybody could buy into. And from what I'm hearing from the floor, I don't think everybody's able to buy into it, perhaps because of the content at the moment. So it might need some rejigging, as my previous Councillor Butt, Daniel Butt, said. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. Point of order to deal with. Councillor Farquhar, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to encourage Councillor Farr, so I'll name him on this, because he mentioned the word banned. I don't see the word ban anywhere in the motion itself, and I think it's misleading to introduce that into the actual debate. I think it was referred to as in the word of banning anybody's fun.
Councillor Farquhar, I don't think is a point of order. It's actually debate, and you have already spoken once. I'd like to move on to Councillor Anne Stribley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to say I didn't recognise that last speaker as a point of order. I too love fireworks, and in the past I've had huge firework parties because I had space to run them, and on many occasions ran them as fundraisers for the British Heart Foundation, amongst other charities. However, the motion before us is nothing that this authority could deal with. I believe it's totally outside our jurisdiction. It would be a national matter and legislation, and there may well be some benefit or point in that, but it's very complex and expensive and long drawn out in order to get bylaws to bring it in as a local matter. So I don't think it is for us. Having said that, and in the past, obviously, when having fireworks, taking care to make sure that my pets were in the house or televisions blaring, and making sure they were not too disturbed by loud noises. This year, of course, I have been extremely disturbed by loud noises and fireworks from my neighbours, and in fact had fireworks land on my balcony, my decking, and on my car, which is something I wasn't too pleased about. The use of fireworks is really down to common sense, and if you haven't got the space for them, you shouldn't be using fireworks that either travel or are too noisy that are going to disturb your neighbours. But I'm afraid I don't believe it's anything that this council could possibly deal with in the short term, and I don't think the motion is appropriate. And for that reason, I won't be supporting it. Thank you, Chairman.
On my list is Councillor Lawrence Fear, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I originally was fairly in favour of this motion, but I feel, one, the confusion over the wording hasn't helped this debate. I also feel that a lot of these measures should be directed at central government for change, which I would be happy to see happen on some of these measures, because there's lots of people and lots of animals that are affected by this. But I don't feel this motion addresses the right corners of this debate, and I feel that the conversation should be addressed to possible local MPs or to central government in a letter by the councillor that's proposing this motion. I think that would do more good than this motion that we may have issues with in the future by missing corners and not getting it right now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. I just need to take guidance and advice. One moment, please, ma'am. Members, I've had a request from Councillor Councillor Brooke, for that we go to the vote. Are members happy that we go to the vote?
Yes.
Agreed.
Is there anybody against?
Agreed.
I'm against it.
Okay, we have one against, Chief Executive.
Yeah, I'm against.
Against going to the vote. That's what we're asking. Just can I have clarity, Chair? You were asking is anybody against going to the vote?
That's correct, members.
So I believe Mark Anderson might want to withdraw his against, if I'm correct.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. So can I just confirm then, are there any members wishing to vote against going to the vote on this motion with regard to B at fireworks? Okay, right. So can I ask Councillor Lewis, please, to reply or sum up, and then we'll go to the vote. Councillor Lewis.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, so can I just be, would you like me to read the actual last point out? It's to encourage local suppliers of fireworks to stock quieter fireworks for private display. The whole point of the motion, which is drafted by the RSPCA, not by myself, is to save animals and veterans and all sorts of people who are bothered by noise of fireworks and spend the weeks when fireworks are on in a nervous state. If fireworks could be quieter, then there wouldn't be such a problem. And if public displays could be notified in advance, then people could prepare and take the necessary medication. So it's really the whole point of the motion is to prevent anguish and upset of animals and people who are bothered by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Right, we've also had a request that the vote be recorded for this item. If there is any members against a recorded vote, would it be possible to type into the taskbar, please? I beg your pardon, we need to see the votes for, not against. That's for a recorded vote. Okay, I will hand over to the Chief Executive to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. So in alphabetical order, I will read out the councillors' names and you're voting for the amended motion as proposed by Councillor Lewis or against or the ability to abstain. So Councillor Hazel Allen.
Abstain.
Councillor Lewis Allison.
For.
Councillor Mark Anderson.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Anderson.
Abstain.
Councillor Marcus Andrews.
For.
Councillor Julie Bagwell.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Barron.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
For.
Councillor John Beasley.
Abstain.
Councillor Derek Borthwick.
For.
Councillor Philip Broadhead.
Abstain.
Councillor Mike Brooke.
For.
Councillor David Brown.
For.
Councillor Simon Bull.
For.
Councillor Richard Burton.
For.
Councillor Diana Butler.
For.
Councillor Daniel Butt.
Abstain.
Councillor Judy Butt.
Abstain.
Councillor Eddie Coop.
Against.
Councillor Mike Cox.
For.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
Abstain.
Councillor Norman Decent.
Abstain.
Councillor Leslie Dedman.
For.
Councillor Brian Dion.
Against.
Councillor Bobby Dove.
Abstain.
Councillor Beverly Dunlop.
Against.
Sorry, Councillor Millie Earl.
For.
Councillor Jackie Edwards.
Abstain.
Councillor LJ Edwards. Councillor George Farquhar.
For.
Councillor Dwayne Farr.
Abstain.
Councillor Lawrence Fear.
Abstain.
Councillor Anne Filer.
For.
Councillor David Flagg.
For.
Councillor Nick Geary.
For.
Councillor Mike Green.
Abstain.
Councillor Nicola Green.
Abstain.
Councillor Andy Hadley.
For.
Councillor May Haynes.
Abstain.
Councillor Peter Hall. Sorry, Councillor Hall, was that abstain?
Yes.
Thanks. Councillor Nigel Hedges.
Abstain.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Mark Howell.
For.
Councillor Mohan Nainga.
Abstain.
Councillor Cheryl Johnson.
For.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
For.
Councillor Jane Kelly.
Abstain.
Councillor David Kelsey.
Against.
Councillor Bob Lawton.
Abstain.
Councillor Marion Le Pedvin.
For.
Councillor Lisa Lewis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Maidment.
For.
Councillor Chris Matthews.
For.
Councillor Simon McCormack. Councillor Simon McCormack. Sorry. I think you're on mute. Sorry, for. Councillor Drew Mellor.
Against.
Councillor Pete Miles.
For.
Councillor Sandra Moore.
For.
Councillor Lisa Northover.
For.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
Against.
Councillor Susan Phillips.
Abstain.
Councillor Margaret Phipps.
For.
Councillor Karen Rampton.
Abstain.
Councillor Felicity Rice.
For.
Councillor Chris Rigby.
For.
Councillor Roberto Rocco.
Abstain.
Councillor Vicky Slade.
For.
Councillor Anne Stribley.
Against.
Councillor Tony Trent.
For.
Councillor Mike White.
Abstain.
Councillor Lawrence Williams.
Against.
Councillor Kieran Wilson.
For.
Thank you, councillors. I'll pass the vote back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, members. And just to report that the motion as altered has been carried. Thank you. Moving on then to item C, ban on badger cull on BCP land. Can I call upon Councillor Slade, please, to present the motion? Councillor Slade.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will keep it brief because there's plenty of detail in the motion. But just to summarise, the badger cull was introduced in England in 2013 in two counties, Somerset and Gloucestershire, and then extended to Dorset as the third county in 2015. In 2014, I was, in knowing this was coming about, I was delighted to bring forward a motion to Poole Council, which was passed, which banned the culling of badgers on land owned or leased by the council there. I was quite surprised that that hadn't also been passed across the rest of this side of Dorset. And whilst much of the badger culling takes place outside of a conurbation, there are areas, particularly to the north, where it is possible for badgers to be shot. The vast majority of the badgers that are shot each year, that are culled each year, are shot in open ground. That means that there is no knowledge about whether those badgers are actually carrying the disease. It can actually cause badgers to flee and diseased badgers then spreading it to other areas. Badgers that are then killed are not tested post-mortem to see whether they did have the disease. And the evidence suggests that the incidence of transmission between badgers and cattle has not significantly fallen in the areas where the badger culls have been taking place, such that the EU are actually prosecuting the UK for their failure to conduct the badger cull in a humane way. DEFRA have confirmed that they will be stopping the badger cull, but it's clearly not a priority at the moment. And until such time as it is agreed to be stopped, year on year, further areas are being added to the badger cull area. And we are seeing between 500 and 800 badgers killed each year with no evidence that they were carrying the disease and with no significant impact upon the health of cattle. There are now vaccinations available for cattle. The badger cull has been found to be cruel and inhumane, with 18% of badgers taking more than 5 minutes to die. It's not appropriate in the 21st century that we should be enabling this sort of thing on our land. The Dorset Wildlife Trust don't allow it on land that they own, and I would call on all members to show some humanity and to formally confirm that we would not allow this on any land owned or leased by the council, and to pass the other parts of the motion which call on the portfolio holder to engage with our MPs and ask for urgent work to be done to bring forward the.
Thank you, Councillor Slade.
Thank you.
Thank you. I understand you have a seconder in Councillor Rigby. Councillor Rigby, please.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. I'm happy to second, and I'll retain my right to speak on that and hopefully not need to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have two members wishing to speak at the moment. Councillor Mark Anderson, please. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support the motion. I did have a couple of questions for Councillor Slade, which I hope she'll be able to answer in the summing up. Someone told me that it's already the BCP policy not to allow culling on BCP Council land. So I'd be interested to know if she knew the answer to that one, and if she had any ideas on where this is actually happening on the BCP land. And finally, I guess as I'm the environment portfolio holder, she's aiming this at me, but I'm happy to support her on this anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Sandra Moore, please. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, as a former member of Poole Council, I supported the motion to ban badger culling on council lands in Poole. So I'm very happy to support this motion to extend the ban to include council land in Bournemouth and Christchurch. As I understand it, this government has said it intends to phase out intensive badger culling in the next few years and has announced trials of a bovine TB cattle vaccine. But in the meantime, and at the same time, badger culling is being expanded into other areas of England, hence the need for this motion. So I ask you to support the motion and protect badgers on land owned by Bournemouth and Christchurch, as well as in Poole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Simon Ball.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting this motion against the ineffective and inhumane practice that nationwide, but certainly support the motion to ban it in BCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Dwayne Farr, please. Councillor Farr.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, I support this motion, fully behind this motion. As a young lad, as a boy, I used to go visit my grandparents' house, and we used to be like a sort of a special sort of a treat, a nice experience that we would stay late and it got dark. We'd see some badgers that were coming to my grandparents' garden. We would put something out for them to eat, and it was just one of that sort of a wonderful sort of experience that I remember from my childhood. And my son's he's very keen on nature and badgers in particular, and sadly, when there was the heath fires in the summer, he went to investigate where there was badgers that were, sadly some were perished in that. So yeah, it's something that's sort of close to my heart, badgers, and I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Councillor Broadhead.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I wasn't intending to speak on this motion, but I will, just because I've just got concern, which again I hope Councillor Slade may be able to answer in her summing up, which might just satisfy me. And it's about the age-old adage, "You don't know what you don't know." And it was the reason I chose to speak was prompted by Councillor Moore talking about the fact that the government are trying to clearly work towards a vaccination programme, which we would all want, and that they are phasing it out. And that trials are taking place on a vaccination, but equally that the badger culling had been extended elsewhere. Now, I don't know what the reason is for that, and of course we all do know the devastation that tuberculosis has caused, particularly in the cattle population and other animals. And I'm just always very wary of us passing motions when we don't have the full knowledge. Government never get everything right, of course, but there are experts out there that do know what they're doing on these things. So more information may come to light on this, and I haven't yet decided how to vote. If it was looking at the 4 different things that we're asked to approve here, number 2, which is offering access to land for the purpose of badger vaccination, of course we should do that. Number 3, to work with landowners to prevent transmission. Of course, we should do that. Number 4, for the portfolio holder to ask DEFRA to accelerate research into alternatives to controlled TB in cattle. Of course, we should do that. Number 1, banning without all the information. Who's to say that there isn't a TB outbreak coming, and this is the only way to stop it? So I might be wrong. I certainly don't want to see any more badgers killed than completely necessary. I'm just slightly wary of banning things that are clearly in the hands of experts elsewhere. But I'm open to persuasion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Anne Filer, please. Councillor Filer.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm in favour of this motion, and I think most of us living in this largely urban area will be delighted to see badgers on our land. I didn't know we had any in this area at all, and I would guess they're probably in the more rural areas of Christchurch and Poole. I can't imagine many places in Bournemouth having badgers. If we had them anywhere near us, I'd be delighted, and I think it reminds us many years ago when I was a little girl, there was a cull on rabbits, and they introduced a horrible disease called myxomatosis, and it was horrible to see animals suffering. And for these animals to be killed in this way, when there's no evidence at all that they carry any disease, I think is tragic, and I thoroughly support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Filer. Councillor Diana Butler. Councillor Butler, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, point number 2 about the vaccination of badgers. I remember a few years back there was a programme of vaccination in Wales, and I think it was quite successful. So hopefully maybe the council and the portfolio holder can look into that. I'm not sure whether it was across the whole of Wales or just part, but possibly we can do some research for that. But that was great news and not much talked about. Thank you.
Councillor Anne Stribley, please. Councillor Stribley.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm minded also to support this motion. Badgers are fascinating. I used to love watching them again at my previous property, certainly against any inhumane way of culling them. My only slight reservation against badgers is that they are the main and in fact the only predator that kills hedgehogs. And if you've got badgers about, you certainly won't see a hedgehog in miles. It's their favourite meal, and I'm afraid hedgehogs are easy prey to badgers. Foxes leave them alone, but badgers don't.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. Councillors.
Thank you, Chair. I think continuing from the last point, not only do they prey on hedgehogs, they're also rather partial to wasps' nests. I'm in the middle of the urban area, and I've got them in my garden. I've never actually seen badgers living in the countryside. Taking Anne Filer's point, I've not seen living badgers in the countryside. As I say, I fully support this. And as an aside, I do sometimes wonder whether my back garden is a camp for badger migrants from the countryside trying to avoid the shooting, because quite frankly, I've never seen as many badgers as I've seen in and around where I live over the last few years. It's unbelievable, but they're a nuisance, but you know, I welcome them and I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Andy Hadley, please. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the thing that strikes me particularly about this is the shooting them and then not actually testing to find out whether they actually had tuberculosis, and the real problem is over intensification of our farming, and that's the problem with why we get so much disease in the herds. I support this motion. I think we shouldn't be taking out on wildlife. Hedgehogs, badgers, there's a lot of things that are very much endangered in our wild areas. And with things like the Sow Valley Park, we have some really nice connected wildlife places, and we should be encouraging them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor George Farquhar. Councillor Farquhar, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very much appreciate the opportunity to speak here. I wasn't going to speak on this motion. I do fully support it for all the reasons given by the proposer and that within the debate. I just wanted to bring the Council's attention to the position statement by the British Hedgehog Preservation Society and the People's Trust for Endangered Species. They disagree that that hedgehogs are the main predation by badgers. Badgers are known to actually kill and eat hedgehogs, but their primary food is invertebrates, earthworms, beetle larvae, and the like. So they have a route around in the same food stuff as hedgehogs prefer to eat. The point of the statement is that those two organisations, both the People's Trust for Endangered Species and the Hedgehog Preservation Society, do not see culling as a way to increase the population of hedgehogs, because they've done studies and the loss of hedgehogs is also in areas where there is no culling. Consequently, they don't support the statement that culling increases hedgehog numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. I have no further members wishing to call upon Councillor Rigby, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy not speaking on it. If Councillor Slade wants to sum up, then that's great.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Slade, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you for that, Chairman. Yes, I do have some answers to the questions that were posed, and I'd be very happy to share them. So the statistics show that 6% of bovine TB comes from badgers. 93.6% of it is from other sources. There's a great long list of animals that can transmit it, but the main transmission of bovine TB is cattle, and as Councillor Hadley has said, that is made worse by the intensification of farming. So if we were to, if the cull was to continue and was successful, it would only potentially have a small reduction in the numbers of cases. Councillor Broad had asked some questions. No, in fact, it was Councillor Anderson asked some questions about our policy. And I did check this with officers before bringing the motion forward, and had it confirmed that there was the only restriction on badger culling that is currently within policy is around open shooting. So open shooting close to villages would require a licence, and because much of our land is close to villages, that would be something that we would be unlikely to give a licence for. However, about a third of the culled animals are actually caged and then shot at close range, so therefore they may not be subject to the same restrictions. In terms of locations, I've actually been out with the team that watched the badger culling, and I've been out just to the north of Poole. I did ask whether there are any specific locations that they could share with me that may well fall within our boundary, and they said that the sites are kept very secret for everybody's security, but I was assured that there was a risk that it took place in our land. I totally acknowledge there is a lot more of it going on in the more rural areas, but in North Poole, to a lower extent North Bournemouth, and certainly Christchurch, there are some very rural areas that it may well be happening. The other thing I just wanted to say was the evidence in Gloucestershire, which was the first place to have the badger cull, is that the rate of incidence in cattle of bovine TB was 12.7%. It's now 13.2%. And the rate of TB in the badgers that are culled is only around 5%. So there's no evidence that these badgers are causing it. There's no evidence that the badgers they're killing have the disease, and there's no real evidence that it works. And above all, it's just cruel. And I think if we can only control it on our land, so let's control it on our land and make sure that these people know that they're not welcome here until such time as it's banned everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. I will now go to the vote. If there are any members wishing to vote against the motion, would you be able to type in the taskbar, please? We don't appear to have any members wishing to vote against the motion. I'll just give it a couple more moments. The point of order from Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to
Can you identify what part of the Constitution your point of order refers to, please?
It's a procedural one where I have the opportunity as a councillor to have my vote recorded where it's not a recorded vote, and I would like to do that, if you please, Chair.
Thank you very much.
And I will be voting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anderson, you have a point of order?
Same as Councillor Farquhar, please, Chairman. I will also be voting for.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now ask the Chief Executive to conduct the vote. Right. There's no members voting against, so therefore the motion is carried with Councillor Anderson and Councillor Farquhar's vote being recorded in the minutes. Thank you, members. I will now move on to item D, lead members and scrutiny on BCP Council. Can I call upon Councillor Mellor, please? Councillor Earl, to propose the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. So having investigated the role of lead members and heard the current guidance available, I felt that this motion needed to be proposed so we can all have absolute clarity on lead members' relationship with the executive and with scrutiny. I must say this comes from my concerns over the lead members' jobs description as being inadequate and the guidance being at best patchy, given there's no legislation on this yet. So this leaves it up to members of the council to decide what is appropriate, and I do not believe it is appropriate for lead members on BCP Council to serve on any scrutiny committee or board. The reason for this is that the job description does specify that lead members' roles are very much part of the executive and will feed into cabinet, take on responsibility and work closely with cabinet members and cabinet overall. This does delegate a large degree of responsibility to lead members, as is reflected in the remuneration for carrying out the role. The report from the Independent Remuneration Panel even says that lead member roles are cross-cutting, which will require all lead members to work with all cabinet members. And the leader himself said at the last that the lead members, and I quote, are genuine cross-cutting multi-portfolio roles. And then another cabinet member also said that he's amazed at how much time he's spending with the lead members, and we should consider that they are individually spending the same amount of time with all 9 cabinet members. The requirement for the lead members to work as such to fulfil their role means that they are directly related to each and every cabinet member. This, alongside the fact that they are directly managed by the leader and not confined to one single portfolio area, as many of their roles are far-reaching in their impact. It means that their sitting or substituting on scrutiny panels is impossible. It is more out of principle and to mitigate risk than anything else, particularly anything political. This needs to be clarified and mitigated against to ensure policy is dealt with transparently through scrutiny and then through Cabinet. Scrutiny board and committees cannot be effective if you have an executive lead member switching from attending a scrutiny meeting to a member on one paper to then substituting for an absent scrutiny member on another paper. It weakens scrutiny panels' resolve to have a member of the executive, albeit a non-voting one, trying to scrutinise policy that the executive is responsible for. So I would have liked to have seen more in the job description or the national guidance. However, it's not covered sufficiently. So I firmly believe it is up to the council to decide where the line is, whether lead members are indeed totally part of the executive or just a little bit, and subsequently whether they ought to be able to scrutinise cabinet policy that they are directly or indirectly involved in producing. So I can see I'm about to run out of time, so I just wanted to say I really hope that you will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Earl, and I understand you have a seconder in Councillor Cormack. Councillor Simon McCormack, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I completely agree with Councillor Earl's comments on this, and I'm happy to second that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCormack. Are there any members wishing to speak on this item, please? Councillor Sandra Moore. Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore, you're on mute.
Sorry, I
No
pressed
worries.
the button, but it bounced back. I do think that lead members or cabinet assistants are a good idea, and I think that the workload of a cabinet member in a council the size of BCP is high, and I can see the lead member role has potential and could be developed into something that's really very useful. However, I don't think lead members should be involved in scrutiny. I appreciate that there is nothing in current legislation to prevent them from being on a scrutiny panel, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea for them to be involved in scrutiny. They clearly work with and for cabinet members, so they really should not be trying to scrutinise what often is other cabinet members' work. This would only prevent difficulties for both the lead member and for the cabinet members involved. I think the two roles should be kept quite separate. I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Vicky Slade, please.
Thank you, Chair. I too support this motion. I understand that it is within the letter of the law, according to the monitoring officer, that this is allowed. But very often we're working within the spirit as well as the letter. And I think we have to gain the trust and the confidence of the public. And I think that for an administration that is talking about transparency at the very heart, what more transparency could there be than to actually say, we have got Cabinet Plus, therefore Cabinet Plus should not be in scrutiny. Furthermore, there are 76 members of this council, 74 at present, but 76 positions on this council. And there should be the opportunity for those who do not have a position in Cabinet Plus to be able to spend their time on the scrutiny panels, looking at the work of the council. We all have a role to play, and I don't think there's any need to increase further. We've already heard some of the lead members telling us how incredibly busy they are with the work that they're doing. Let scrutiny be done by those people for whom scrutiny is their role and not where they are potentially conflicted morally or legally at any time. I just think it's not a sensible thing to do, and I think we should work to actually separate them and take them off of all scrutiny panels going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor John Beasley. Councillor Beasley, please.
Sorry, Chairman, I don't believe that I indicated. If I did so by accident.
Thank you, Councillor Beasley. Councillor Drew Mellor, please. Councillor Mellor.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, we're hearing that there's no guidance. I find it quite uncomfortable, really, because we've had quite clear advice and guidance from our legal team, from Democratic Services, from our monitoring officer, that this is, that there is no issue, here. So I fundamentally disagree with that statement. I do agree in relating to main O&S committee. It's a very broad committee, and it'd be very difficult to effectively keep on top of the risk in that. So I'm very happy to support no lead members being on the main overview and scrutiny committee, but by restricting members from the broader scrutiny committees, we're actually losing some very talented members from committees. It's entirely possible to manage the risk in relation to that, and there's no reason they shouldn't be involved in committees. But they have their lead member roles have absolutely no remit in. So, and overarchingly, we've been quite clear about this. We want more members involved, not less members. So, I will formally propose a very simple amendment to the Councillor Earl's motion, and I will insert the words: their decision making cannot be members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and cannot substitute for absent members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And I seek a seconder for that motion. I'll put that in the chat bar.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Broadhead?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm quite pleased to second that amendment to the motion. I completely agree with most of the things that have been said previously, and I share some of the thoughts that Councillor Mellor has pointed out as well. There are areas clearly, and Councillor Earl said it herself, where those that are involved in the decision-making process who are should not scrutinise policy with which they have directly or indirectly been involved with, and I think that's an absolutely crucial part of the overview and scrutiny process. But as Councillor Mellor pointed out, we have well, not only unique, but we were helped design the scrutiny system that we've got by the then Centre of Public Scrutiny, and the aim was to separate out essentially what are the statutory functions from the rest of scrutiny. So we have a main overview and scrutiny board whose remit is quite wide and quite deep and covers the large breadth of the more strategic areas of the council. And I would agree with the amendment that I don't think it's appropriate that the lead members sit on that main overview and scrutiny board. However, the remit of the lead members who are not decision makers is quite clear. It's within their titles, and where we have other areas such as the licensing committee or the planning board or the children's services or adults, I see no reason why a lead member who is not a decision maker, who is leading on biodiversity or culture or retail strategy or regeneration, should not have the option to be able to be sitting on committees that look at our licensing policy or look at our emerging issues in our troubled children's services. I think that is appropriate. These are statutory areas, but of course the main overview and scrutiny board is an entirely different entity. So I'm quite happy to support the amended motion that's been put forward, that lead members shouldn't sit on the main overview and scrutiny board, or indeed substitute for absent members of the main overview and scrutiny board. But I do think it's appropriate with the other committees. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Members, if you just bear with me one moment, I just want to check on the amendment from Councillor Mellor. Thank you. So the amendment as set out in the taskbar by Councillor Mellor, we now need to debate. So are there any members wishing to speak on the amendment, please? Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this amendment. I think from my perspective, the original motion is very much welcome. because scrutiny is scrutiny and executive. When I spoke to the monitoring officer myself on this matter prior to full council last time, and I note that Councillor Mellor says that we've had very clear guidance. The guidance that was given to me at that time, and I'm sure it's been given to, and I know it's been given to other group leaders, is that it is for the decision of the councillor whether or not there is a conflict of interest. I don't support the amendment because it puts a difficult situation in that each one of those lead members that continues to sit on the scrutiny panels has to make that decision in each case, whether or not there's a conflict. We've already encountered this at overview and scrutiny in the case of another councillor who was challenged to actually be on that committee or not as a substitute. So I don't support the amendment because it's quite clearly laid out in the job description for a lead member what it is that they're going to do, what the breadth of experience is, the breadth of the role is, and consequently, then there will be nigh on impossible from my perspective to put that amount of workload in, to be advising cabinet and working closely with cabinet, and then to put on your scrutiny head. I would not support the amendment because I think it puts too much strain on a lead member to actually make that decision to what is actually a conflict of interest, shall we say, if they attended any scrutiny. The other thing which I'd like to say is that it was mentioned that this would prevent councillors sitting on licensing and a variety of other committees. I think we need to be quite clear is that, to my understanding, that the amendment is for scrutiny committees. So licensing and other committees which were mentioned, I don't think come into the equation. So I won't be supporting the amendment for those reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor David Kelsey, please. Councillor Kelsey.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say that I will be supporting the amendment. And one of the reasons for that is, from my recollection, Chairman, at the beginning of every single meeting that we hold as members of this council, we are asked for a declaration of interests. And I would not want to be amongst anyone here who I would not trust to not speak up if they had a conflict of interest. I think we are all adults. We are all capable of making our own minds up as to when and if we feel we are conflicted in something that we are asked to be sitting on and scrutinising. Therefore, I think it is up to the members to make their own decision on whether they feel they can carry on a particular panel. There is no need for us to have these rules. I agree with not sitting on the main scrutiny panel, but I think members should be allowed to sit on all of the other scrutiny panels. We are adults, we are able to do it. And if I'm not mistaken, Chairman, we have an extremely good person in Ms Vice who will tell us if we are wrong. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kelsey. Councillor Rachel Maidment, please. Councillor Maidment.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to speak against the amendment. I'm finding it quite confusing. For me, by suggesting that lead members cannot be on overview and scrutiny boards, but can sit on the other scrutiny boards, I'm finding it that it really confuses the process of scrutiny for me. All scrutiny panels are significant and important to the work we're doing in the council, and to suggest it's acceptable for some and not others is really demeaning to some of the work of the other scrutiny panels. They're not less significant or less important. There was also a comment that earlier that suggested that we'd be losing people of talent by these people not being able to be on the scrutiny boards. And I find that quite offensive to other members who have equal talent and talent in different areas and have so much to offer by being involved in these committees. So I find that quite strange that it would be suggested that it's only the lead members that hold this talent and not the other members. And again, I also think we need to remember this is about the spirit of the law. It's not always about the letter of the law. It's about what the law's seeking to achieve. And I think we need to be mindful that we reflect what the law wants to achieve, rather than is it technically true that we could do this. So I would like to speak against it, and that's my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Councillor Anne Stribley, please. Councillor Stribley.
Thank you, Chairman. I will certainly be supporting this amendment. Of course, one shouldn't be scrutinising an area in which you have an active interest, but a member who is perhaps a lead member on the transportation area or planning and regeneration area should certainly be allowed to sit on the children's ONS, for instance, and any other scrutiny panel which is not dealing with those members. I found this council not as scrupulous as it should be in appointing members to various committees, and was extremely concerned when a previous senior member of the planning committee actually had a history and a total background of working with the building industry and developers. And so I am absolutely certain that where an councillor has a personal individual interest, they should stay as far away from that particular area of the council business as possible. I think this amendment covers that precisely. It is difficult sometimes to get the appropriate keen members, and some members work vastly more than others, onto the right committees. So I think any member who is prepared to sit on the appropriate committee, making sure obviously they don't conflict their interest with their special role as a lead member. I see no problem with it at all, and this exactly puts the council clearly where it should be. So I support Councillor Kelsey and other speakers on this matter, and I think the amendment puts it absolutely right and should put everybody's mind at rest. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. Councillor Earl, I've been advised that as the proposer of the original motion, you have the opportunity to sum up at the end of the debate rather than speaking now.
Can I speak on the amendment?
One moment.
The chairman really should know that.
Councillor, my understanding is that you are at the end of the debate of the amendment. Rather than speaking now, you can wait to the end. So I will call you after no other speakers on the amendment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Rigby, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just a quick thing on this, really, hopefully. I just want to draw the councillors' attention to page 499 in the agenda for this meeting, which has got the role of the lead member and their actual job description in it. And there's a number of points in there which I'll give some examples, save everyone scrolling to it. And one of their task is to accompany cabinet members when attending overview and scrutiny committee meetings where required, or to attend on their behalf, to assist cabinet members in establishing and maintaining professional, effective and efficient working relationships with opposition groups, chairmen of committees, other members, appropriate outside bodies, to provide advice and support, work closely alongside relevant cabinet members. I think a lot of these roles and what they're being put up to do is really close to what the cabinet members are doing, and it's very much involved. And I think to have the ability to have a seat at both sides of the table is really just a little bit too much. And if we are talking about scrutiny as a whole here, the best placed people to scrutinise are the ones who are sitting and have more of an outside perspective on what's going on. That's how I see scrutiny. I mean, yesterday we had a really good meeting, a really good overview and scrutiny meeting, I felt, where we got a lot of really good work done. And I'm proud of that. you know, and I think by having people who are sitting closer to the cabinet with a bit more of an insight, it may change the ability to do that good work on all of the committees. So I wouldn't be able to support the amendments as it is, and I think the substantive is a much better way in which we can do this. And we are only talking here about 6 members, and even fewer than that when you think the independent lead members cannot actually have substitutes as they're not part of groups. So we're only talking about a very small number of people who can't sit on committees, and I think there's enough really talented councillors to be able to do the scrutiny work across the board from all parties. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor. Mike Brooke, please.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Mellor that these members should not sit on overview and scrutiny, and he has basically said because they are involved in making the decisions along with the cabinet members. Cabinet members make decisions relating to children's services and adult social services and care. As it has been agreed that the lead members are cross-cutting and working with all cabinet members, then it is absolutely clear that they're involved in decision making, not only in issues which come to overview and scrutiny, but also come to children's services and adult social care. Consequently, if I read the Constitution correctly, because they are assisting the executives in their decision making, then they are involved in the decision making process, and therefore constitutionally they cannot sit on any scrutiny committee. And because of that, I will not be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Councillor Bobby Dove, please. Councillor Dove.
Yes, thank you. I'm speaking tonight once again, not expecting to, because we seem to be having this conversation quite a lot in terms of the lead member roles. And I'm speaking really because once again, those lead member roles have aspersions cast upon them. I do not sit on any scrutiny boards, just to be clear. I sit on licensing because that's where I can sit. I feel that some of the stuff that is being put forward tonight and what we have heard has been uneducated, uninformed, and just, I mean, Councillor Earl can look shocked, but pretty much that's how I see it. I don't know any cabinet member who has been spoken to. I don't know any lead member who has been spoken to, and yet she says that she remains confused about how the role works and in what capacity we complete that role. So I will be speaking tonight really to set this record straight in terms of our residents, because I do not like these aspersions being cast upon me, upon my moral integrity. People say that they have found other comments about members demeaning and offensive. Well, so do I. And I speak on behalf of myself and the other 5 lead members. It is quite clear that some people have spoken to the monitoring officer, but clearly they've not had the conversation that we have had, so that we can ascertain exactly not what is only correct, but what is morally correct as well. So let's be clear exactly the conversations that we have had, so we're not jumping to the wrong conclusions and bringing forward motions which are downright insulting. Monitoring officers assess the appropriateness of our roles. I'm sorry, Councillor Milley, I can see you laughing. This is not funny. It's inappropriate to be laughing at something where you have cast aspersions upon monitoring officers' decision making and also our moral obligations. So I will complete what I'm saying. Monitoring officers assess the appropriateness of our roles. They also ascertain as to whether or not there is a conflict of interest both morally and in the decision making process. She has absolutely been advising both the whip and where lead members should be sitting and where they can be sitting without any conflict of interest, both technically and in the spirit of the law. Her guidance has been sought, clarified and fully taken on board.
everything that the monitoring officer has advised and has agreed and has been happy with and satisfied in terms of risk to the council, the leader of the council has followed that advice. That's really all I have to say tonight, but I really do hope that we will stop attacking members on members because it's inappropriate and our residents deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dove. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the previous speaker, Councillor Bobby Dove. You've certainly shot my fox on a lot of issues, well covered. I would just like to reiterate that is this going to be the norm where the opposition are going to ignore the monitoring officer's clear stated advice and also that which sits clearly within our constitution. Our constitution is not there to be interpreted, it is there to be adhered to in all ways, shape and form. With regard to Councillor Maidment, who had some confusion with regard to why it was not okay for overview and scrutiny board and it was okay for the specific health scrutiny and the specific children's scrutiny, that is actually it. Because if anybody who has an interest with regard to being a lead member has any connection with health, obviously they will not be substituting, and exactly the same with children's. They can pick and choose, but because the board has such a wide remit, it would be almost impossible to be risk averse with regard to any conflicts of interest that might arise. So I would again iterate with regard to the monitoring officer. We have clear advice. This is very silly. This is just meddling. Perhaps it's down to the inexperience of the putter of the motion. I'm unsure, but I'll certainly be supporting the amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Butley, please. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, these are new roles, and I think it's a shame. And I don't think this is about the people that are fulfilling the roles, but it is about the transparency of this council. We have some unfortunately previous councils with success from. Actually, there has been some issues about how open and transparent they've been, and we were promised, as we tried to as the Unity Alliance, that this administration would be very open and transparent. And I think it's clear that cabinet members can't sit on overview and scrutiny. That's not just picking and choosing which overview and scrutiny boards. That's any overview and scrutiny, and it should be so with the lead officers. So I will not support the amendment. I think the original motion is quite clear, and it is only the three that we're talking about. It is about the main overview and scrutiny board and the adults and children's boards, and not licensing or other areas. They're not scrutiny boards. Thank you.
I'm speaking to support the amendment because this one-size-fits-all approach just simply isn't going to work. Councillor Kelsey outlined some very important principles, and those of us that haven't been here 5 minutes clearly understand conflicts of interest. We understand the code and we know when they affect us personally, and we would make those declarations. I'm the lead member for Regeneration for Bournemouth and cultural events. I'm a member of Children's Services panel, and I would like anybody on that panel to actually say to me that they think that I am not capable or I do not actively and fully scrutinise in that panel. And I say to Councillor Farquhar, perhaps when you've been a councillor for 14 years, you will be able to manage your workload effectively and manage a scrutiny panel as well as a lead member. I am able to split that work. I have a lot of experience in children's services, and I think that even the cabinet colleagues would tell you quite specifically they are being scrutinised. There are conflicts, and where there are conflicts, we can see them and we will make that judgment. It is inappropriate for me to sit on the licensing committee anymore because of the responsibility I hold as a lead member. There is absolutely zero conflict between children's services and my responsibility as a lead member, and we have to be grown up and we have to recognise councillors can see those conflicts of interest. You cannot have this one size fits all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Councillor Richard Burton, please. Councillor Burton.
So thank you, Chair.
I mean, I have had meetings with the monitoring officer to discuss this. I am very grateful for the amount of work that all members do in children's services, whether they be lead members or not lead members. And I know a lot of scrutiny goes on in children's services, but I am very uncomfortable to having children's services and adult services taken to one side out of the overview and scrutiny board and treated differently. So I'm afraid on this one I cannot support the amendment, but although I would like to support the original motion.
Do we have a chairman to this meeting?
Beg your pardon, members. It is. I'm sure you will appreciate that it is very difficult to conduct a meeting over the internet while taking guidance and advice from not only the chief executive but the monitoring officer in the way that we conduct our meetings. So you know, I'm sorry that sometimes if I'm not there when I should be, but I need to get the correct advice for moving forward. Right. I had a point of order from Councillor Farquhar, which I was trying to deal with the officers. There is no right of reply, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Dunlop merely mentioned your name.
Thank you for that guidance, Chair. I will abide by your ruling.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Trent, please. Tony Trent.
Thank you, Chair. I find it a bit disturbing that certain members feel insulted by the basis of this motion, because if you go right back to the beginning when the cabinet scrutiny system was created by government, it was to separate responsibilities, and you were either part of the administration or you were a backbencher or opposition. And the idea that somehow you can kind of muddle the two up doesn't actually fit with the way it was built. There were issues a few years ago regarding members of cabinet sitting on or influencing planning committees, and this was something that had to be sorted out by case law or something of that nature. And lead members is a new construction, and I think the advice that we've got from officers so far on it is a little bit uncertain, but the way the role of the lead members is stated puts them much closer to the cabinet and therefore would disqualify them from being on scrutiny. And it's not a case of reflecting on any individual involved. There has to be this clear separation. And when you bear in mind that there are 76 members of this council, albeit there's only 74 at present, effectively you've got a group that is, you know, it's being implied can kind of be on foot in both camps. And quite frankly, there are plenty of members that are not lead members or cabinet members that have a contribution to make. And I do agree with my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Maidment, when it's actually insulting saying that the only talented people are the ones who are on the inside now, that there aren't other talented people to get involved. And that goes for, you know, members of all groups. It's not just, administration party, opposition party. So I really do think that we need to have a clear separation between the two, and that scrutiny is scrutiny. And until you actually devise other structures like policy advisory groups or whatever, then you have to maintain this clear structure. So I don't support the amendment. I support the original motion on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Mark Howell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just feel that the monitoring officer is being dragged into this a bit unfairly, and I think that the reality is that the monitoring job has made a technical decision, whereas what is a reality in terms of how people outside perceive how operations run and organisations run may be different from the technical rules that support them. It's clear if one looks at the description of lead members that they are performing cabinet roles in every respect other than voting in cabinet. It is the voting in cabinet that the monitoring officer has to take as determining whether the person is interested or not. But in terms of looking at the substance of the work that is being done, the lead members are very much part of the cabinet, and therefore one would expect them to take collective responsibility in the same way as cabinet members generally do. And I think that is the reason why they should not be included in scrutiny committees. Of course, you may get some members who decide to act independently, and you may get an administration that is prepared to allow them to do that. But in general, one would expect that lead members would feel obliged to some degree to accept some collective responsibility, and that's why you need a division between scrutiny and them as part of the cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Mike Green, please. Councillor Green.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I can be very, very brief. To some extent, I agree with Councillor Mellor, because she said something which was clearly true, which is that she doesn't really understand the role of lead members. And it's very clear that a number of other members don't in the way that they've been speaking, although suddenly, immediately, we'll hear from others, oh, well, this is what they do. They are involved in each of the decisions that are being made by Cabinet. They are involved, intrinsically involved. They are obliged to be supporting those roles, etc. Nothing of the sort. Can we please make it absolutely clear? These members are involved in some decisions, but in assisting Cabinet members, they are not involved in others. And it is quite offensive to suggest, as we've heard from others, that they should not be able to, they haven't got the intellectual capacity to work out whether they should declare an interest or they shouldn't. We have had clear guidance from the monitoring officer. It should not be the case that we are telling the monitoring officer how she should interpret the law, how she should interpret the Constitution. She has done so. She's given her ruling. The reason why the amendment still suggests that those lead members should not be on the main overview and scrutiny board is because that covers such a wide array that there is a very good chance that during a meeting that they will not be able to participate in that item. When one looks at the other two panels instead, it is very easy for them to ensure that they are not involved in the decisions that will be made under those scrutiny committees, and that is in no way suggesting that those scrutiny boards for health, or adults and health, and for children are any less relevant or any less important than the main board. Yeah, it's just that it has a more limited range, and therefore it is easier to avoid those decisions. These are intelligent people. Please stop insulting that intelligence.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Toby Johnson, please. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think no one here is suggesting that the lead members do not have the intellectual ability, capacity, or genuine integrity to not declare when they have a conflict of interest in any of what we are suggesting. However, grey areas and interpretation, as well as human error, are everywhere and are demonstrated, I think, by this very debate about lead members and on lead members, during which lead members have spoken and presumably will vote on their own positions and their own remit. Now, to someone from the outside, and to me personally, that could easily be construed as a conflict of interest. And this has not been declared or even spoken about yet during this meeting. As a council, we must protect ourselves from the possibility of human error and grey areas on decisions that will affect, especially during overview and scrutiny committees, of which Children's, as Councillor Burton is very much a part of. We must protect ourselves from these grey areas, from the possibility of human errors. This is of absolutely no slight to anyone who is or could be a lead member. It is a simple fact that mistakes happen, and we must protect ourselves against that. We must allow ourselves to be protected against possible challenges, and therefore I will not be supporting this amendment, as we must take a clear position and not leave it up to members who are already under immense stress and will be under considerable stress for the considerable future. So therefore I will not be supporting this amendment and support the original motion as presented by Councillor Earl. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Mike White, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I find this debate's getting very repetitive. I'd like to move that the amendment be put. Thank you.
Just bear with me one moment, members. I want to take guidance and advice from the monitoring officer. Thank you. Thank you, members. It's been requested by Councillor Mike White that we go to the vote. At my discretion, I will now ask Councillor Drew Mellor to sum up, and then I will ask Councillor Mellor with her right of reply on the amendment, and then we will go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor White's right. You know, we've gone through this again. I don't need to repeat a lot of the points that have been made by some of my colleagues, particularly Councillors Dove and Butt, summed it up beautifully and strongly. I'm very happy to just move the vote, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I am just shocked. I honestly put this to council as a constitutional issue to sort out. You know, one that was based on the IRP. I'm really quite shocked that members have to take stuff so personally, and I'd recommend we all try and put our emotions aside for full council, as it's not very helpful. It doesn't really contribute to the debate. It's actually a little unprofessional as well. So for me, it just feels very much like, you know, we need to look at this objectively. So I'm sorry, this motion isn't about compromise. You can't have lead members who are supposed to be working with all cabinet members. If they are not doing that, then they are not fulfilling their roles. And the monitoring officer, as you know, of course, when I submitted the motion, said there was nothing unconstitutional about it. You simply can't have it both ways with lead members working cross cabinet. And just to give you a bit of background, I never said there wasn't guidance. I said that the guidance was insufficient because it relates to cabinet assistants that are not confined to one single portfolio. We even need to change the role to members to be cabinet assistants working with a single portfolio holder, and that way we can quite rightly allow them to take part in scrutiny items outside their specific areas. And just to take Councillor Kelsey's point, we actually had a lead member present on scrutiny board at November's meeting, and she failed to declare an interest when asked at the start of the meeting, despite a direct conflict of interest with her lead member role and an item on the agenda. So without being rude, it's clear that lead members are already getting confused over their roles, and it took a lot of objections from members of the board for her to finally excuse herself.
Chairman, I'm sorry. This is
why it needs
you shouldn't even be up on an amendment. Is yours.
Members, can we please, Councillor Dunlop, could you please turn your microphone off? When Councillor Earl has finished speaking, I will come to you for your point of order.
The point of order is that she shouldn't be speaking to an amendment. It's not her amendment. She cannot sum up on an amendment that isn't hers.
I absolutely support that.
And Chair, point of order. Surely we have the right to stand up in a chamber. Surely we have the right to stand up in a chamber to raise a point of order. So the point of order from Councillor Dunlop should have been taken before Millie Earl was allowed to carry on speaking. Yeah, I appreciate this is a really difficult meeting.
Councillor Mellor, members, I'm going to take guidance from the monitoring officer with regards to the point of order raised by Councillor Dunlop. Thank you. Members, I'm going to call the monitoring officer in a moment just to basically advise members where we are. Councillor Dunlop, it is at my discretion. I can call any member who's raised a point of order. I don't have to take it immediately, and members should raise the point of order in terms of the paragraph that where the Constitution that you think the point of order has been broken. It is at my discretion to call members when they raise a point of order. And I totally accept what you're saying, Councillor Mellor, but if 5 people stood up at once, who would I call first? So I'm going to ask the monitoring officer just to advise everyone where we stand in terms of the right of reply. And what I will do after somebody's can you turn your microphones off, members? We're getting the feedback. What I will do, can members please turn your microphones off? What I will do is I will ask Councillor Millie Earl to sum up after the monitoring officer has explained the wording from the Constitution. Susan Vice, please.
Good evening, members. I would like to draw your attention to Appendix 3 of the Council Procedure Rules on page 442, if members do want to refer to it online. Paragraph 11, right of reply. I think it may help, it's a short help if I just read it out. The mover of the motion shall have the right to reply at the close of the debate on the motion, immediately before it's put to the vote. If an amendment is moved, the mover of the original motion shall have the close of the debate on the amendment, but shall not otherwise speak on it. So that's the reason why the chair asked Councillor Earl not to speak when she requested to, but to wait until the end of the debate. The mover of the amendment shall have the right of reply to the debate on their amendment before the mover of the original motion. So for those reasons, Councillor Earl does have the right to reply at the close of the debate on the amendment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Susan. Upon Councillor Millie Earl to reply to the amendment that we've debated. Councillor Millie Earl, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, another shining example of a lack of clarity in the Constitution, or maybe our misinterpretation of it. So I was speaking and I got interrupted, so I just wanted to finish what I was saying. So I said, to Councillor Kelsey's point, we actually had a lead member present on scrutiny board at November's meeting, and she failed to declare an interest when asked at the start of the meeting, despite a direct conflict of interest with her lead member role on an item on the agenda. So, without being rude, it's clear that lead members are already getting confused over their own roles, and it took a lot of objections from members of the board for her to finally excuse herself from the motion. This is why this needs clarity, and because of that, I would ask members not to support this amendment, but to support the motion as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. I will now ask the Chief Executive to conduct the vote on the proposed amendment. Thank you, Graham.
Chair, can I just ask a question, please? Sorry, Chief Executive.
I think we've passed that point, but I'll pass to the Chairman. Councillor Dove is requesting to ask a question. There's no procedure for that.
Councillor Dove, we're moving to the vote.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it was just clarity from the monitoring officer, because obviously there's a question raised about a conflict of interest about whether or not it's appropriate for us to vote.
Chairman, there's no further debate.
Councillor Dove, there's no further debate. If you wish to type in the text bar, if you have a question for the monitoring officer, I'm sure the monitoring officer will reply. Thank you.
The first vote.
Thank you, Chairman. So I shall move to the vote, if members would please. This is the vote on the amendment to the motion. Please vote for if you are in favour of the amendment, against if you are against the amendment. So in alphabetical order, Councillor Hazel Allen.
For.
Councillor Lewis Allison.
Against.
Councillor.
For.
Councillor Sarah Anderson.
For.
Councillor Marcus Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Julie Bagwell.
For.
Councillor Steve Barron.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
Against.
Councillor John Beasley.
For.
Councillor Derek Borthwick.
For.
Councillor Philip Broadhead.
For.
Councillor Mike Brooke.
Against.
Councillor David Brown.
Against.
Councillor Simon Bull.
Against.
Councillor Richard Burton.
Against.
Councillor Diana Butler.
Abstain.
Councillor Daniel Butt.
For.
Councillor Judy Butt.
For.
Councillor Eddie Coop.
For.
Councillor Mike Cox.
Against.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
For.
Councillor Norman Decent.
For.
Councillor Leslie Dedman.
Against.
Councillor Brian Dion.
For.
Councillor Bobby Dove.
For.
Sorry, Councillor Dove, was that for?
That's a for, and the clarification, please, as well.
Sorry, I didn't catch. Did you record a vote for? I didn't hear the rest of it. Sorry. Okay, Councillor Beverley Dunlop.
For.
Councillor Millie Earl.
Against.
Councillor Jackie Edwards.
For.
Councillor LJ Evans.
Against.
Councillor George Farquhar.
Again, recorded, please.
Councillor Dwayne Farr.
For.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence Fear.
For.
Councillor Anne Filer.
For.
Councillor David Flagg.
Against.
Councillor Nick Geary.
Against.
Councillor Mike Green.
For.
Councillor Nicola Green.
For.
Councillor Andy Hadley.
Against.
Councillor May Haynes.
For.
Councillor Peter Hall. Sorry, Councillor Hall, that's very faint. Could you ask you to repeat, please? For. Okay, thank you. Councillor Nigel Hedges.
For.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
Against.
Councillor Mark Howell.
Against.
Councillor Mohan Iyengar.
For.
Councillor Cheryl Johnson.
For.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Jane Kelly.
For.
Councillor David Kelsey.
For.
Councillor Bob Lawton.
For.
Councillor Marion Lepedovan.
Against.
Councillor Lisa Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Rachel Maidment.
Against.
Councillor Chris Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Simon McCormack.
Against.
Councillor Drew Mellor.
For.
Councillor Pete Miles.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Moore.
Against.
Councillor Lisa Northover.
Against.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
For.
Susan Phillips.
For.
Councillor Margaret Phipps.
Against.
Councillor Karen Rampton.
For.
Councillor Felicity Rice.
Against.
Councillor Chris Rigby.
Against.
Councillor Roberto Rocco.
4.
Councillor Vicky Slade.
Against.
Councillor Anne Stribley.
Sorry, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Trent.
Against.
Councillor Mike White.
4.
Councillor Lawrence Williams.
4.
Councillor Kieran Wilson.
Against.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. The result of the vote on the amendment is as follows: 38 for, 32 against, and 1 abstention. And so the amendment is carried. We will now move to debate on the substantive motion, and I understand the following members have already spoken, and that is Councillor Moore and Councillor Slade. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak here. I'm a little concerned on a matter of procedure, and I know it's very, very difficult to manage a virtual meeting such as this for full council. I do note in the chat bar, which is not visible to the public unless it is under a freedom of information request, that a councillor has sought clarification from the monitoring officer on whether or not, as a lead member, they should have participated in that previous vote. And I think it might well be helpful for full council to get that clarification from the monitoring officer, but I leave it entirely in your hands.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. If members should just bear with me one moment. Susan to address the council. Thank you.
Okay, members, I apologise for not replying in the chat bar as quickly as you would have liked, but I was trying to assist with the vote before I came back to Councillor Dove. But I can just as easily verbally give my view, which is that the leader has the authority to appoint cabinet assistants or lead members, as we refer to them by. The leader has done so. What we are voting on tonight is not the appointment of those lead members, but the principle of whether or not the people in those positions can sit on scrutiny. So I don't see that there's a conflict between the current incumbents, for the current incumbents to vote, because there's no financial or other benefit to them in whether they sit on scrutiny or not. They would still be cabinet assistants or lead members irrespective. So I don't believe that there's a conflict. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Susan. Councillor Beverly Dunlop, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually wish to reply to Councillor Earl in her right of reply. She used me repeatedly, suggesting that I refused to declare an interest. Let me say very specifically, I had absolutely no interest to declare at that meeting.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dunlop. Right, I'll move on to Councillor Stephen Bartlett, please. We are debating the motion proposed by
Chairman. I've raised
Councillor Earl.
Chairman, I've raised a point of order, if I may.
Members, just for clarity, we are now debating the substantive motion. A number of members have raised a point of order. Members have been advised on previous meetings that members should quote the paragraph of the point of order that you wish to make. This is the guidance being given by our officers. And I'm just going to hand over to the Chief Executive just to qualify what I've just said.
Thank you, Chairman. Not for the first time, I will read paragraph 14, Council's Constitution. Councillor may rise on a point of order or in personal explanation should be entitled to be heard immediately. A point of order shall relate only to an alleged breach of a procedure rule or statutory provision, and the councillor shall specify the procedure rule or statutory provision and the way in which they consider it has been breached. A personal explanation should be confined to some material part of a former speech by them which may appear to have been misunderstood in the current debate. So our constitution is very clear, Chairman. Somebody raising a point of order should quote exactly which paragraph, which section, which procedure rule, which statutory provision has been breached and how they think it's been breached at the start of their point of order. You may then hear the point of order. That's the way the Constitution's written. I have to say I've not heard quite so many points of order being raised in a single meeting, so I'm hoping if councillors could take note of that, it might help us in the procedure.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Right, I will call upon Councillor Stephen Bartlett. Councillor Bartlett, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Bartlett. I have a point of order from Councillor Anderson. 14 has been. Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The Chief Executive has referred to paragraph 14 in the Constitution, where he refers to what the items are that we have to raise. But in the previous council, we were given cheat sheets that showed all the appropriate paragraphs and points of order. We don't have that, so surely you can't expect councillors to raise the specific paragraph and subparagraph, etc., if you don't provide us with the information.
Councillor Anderson, I think the Constitution is available on the internet, which sets out the procedures of this council. Can I move on to Councillor Stephen Bartlett?
I'm quite happy to quote the actual point of order, if I may.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a point of order regarding Appendix E of the procedure motions, and it's on page 441, the status of amendments. And it was more of a point of clarity. You refer that we're now moving to the substantive motion, and I just wanted clarity, as it does say in that paragraph, that an amendment is carried, the motion as amended will take the place of the original motion, and that shall be the motion upon which any further discussion and amendments may be moved. So can I just have clarity that we're now discussing the past amended motion as a substantive? Thank you, Chairman.
That's correct. Councillor Broadhead. Right, point of order from Councillor Lawrence Fear.
Thank you, Chair. I have two. The first point of order is point of order 14, where I just wanted to get confirmation that the Chief Executive did read the words out right, that a member that Flagg's point of order will be heard immediately, and it won't be passed over until a speaker is finished speaking. My second point of order is on page 34. Sorry, it's on page 4-43, and it's procedural rule 34.1 in regards to members, and in particular one member that has constantly been pointing of ordering, shall I say, for lots of meetings recently, and I feel that that member may be getting close to falling under that procedural rule of 34.1 of being a disturbance to this meeting. So I'd just like to flag that if that individual continues, I may have to push that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Councillor Borthwick.
Yes,
Councillor Borthwick, can I just say that members wishing to speak need to raise the hand icon on the software.
Where is it?
Well, I think you need to get some IT training, Councillor
No,
Borthwick.
Mr. Chairman, you're in charge of the meeting, so you should give me fair a response from me to be able to raise my point of order. You are not being fair if you start picking out rules. All you had to do, Mr. Chairman, at the end of the vote was say that the amendment became the substantive motive, and that then is what we vote on, not going round the houses again. You are not helping, Mr. Chairman. You are supposed to be in a neutral position, and you are not doing that. And I'm ashamed to say that you've let the meeting get out of order.
Well, thank you for your support.
Simple thing, substantive motion becomes the motion.
Thank you very much for your support, Councillor Borthwick. I have officers with me here who are giving me guidance and advice, and I think I'd like to take their guidance and advice rather than yours. So let's move on then with Councillor Stephen Bartlett, please.
Thank you, Chair. What I'm going to say now, I don't want any member to take any side against their personal integrity or ability. My comments are purely aimed at the constitutional issues that are raised under this motion. Now, our constitution reflects our current structure. The structure has now changed because we've introduced lead members. It may be that the constitution does now require amendment to accommodate that change in the structure. Now, lead members are influential in the formation of strategy, and they participate in the decisions that follow strategies. They do it across the board of decision making across the cabinet, and for the same reasons that cabinet members are do not take part in ONS meetings, the same would apply to lead members who are essentially still part of the cabinet, although junior members of it, and for that reason, on the constitutional reasons only, I'm going to go against this particular motion, because I do feel that lead members will be part of the cabinet and part of the influential and decision-making processes in one way or another right across the cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor N.
Thank you, Chairman. This meeting has dissolved.
Sorry, Councillor Stribley, I have a point of order from Councillor Nicola Green, Procedural Order Rule 9.
Chairman, I also put up a point of order.
Chairman, may I speak?
I didn't see your point of order, Councillor Stribley, so I'll ask Councillor Green to speak. Councillor Green, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I do apologise to Councillor Stribley. I tried to time that point of order so as not to interrupt another speaker. And I do hope that I've followed the correct procedure. I've tried to find the correct part of the Constitution to make a move that the question now be put I hope I found the correct section, Chairman, but I think in the interests of, apart from anything else, I think the council's reputation, I think we are generating more heat than light here. I think there have been some very good points made respectfully, but unfortunately the meeting, I think, is now just going round and round in circles. There's been a full debate on the amendment, and therefore I would like to request that the motion now be put.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Members, it's been proposed and I have a seconder that the question now be put, and I will move to the Chief Executive to undertake the vote, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So to confirm to members, this is a vote on the amended motion, including the words that were proposed by Councillor Mellor in the chat bar some time ago. I've just found them now, which are that lead members appointed by the leader to assist the executive in the decision making cannot be members of the Overview and Scrutiny Board and cannot substitute for absent members of the Overview and Scrutiny Board. So that's the motion that is being put. If you are in favour of that, please vote for. If you are against, please say against or abstain. Councillor Hazel Allen.
For.
Councillor Lewis Allison.
For.
Councillor Mark Anderson.
For.
Councillor Sarah Anderson.
For.
Councillor Marcus Andrews.
Abstain.
Councillor Julie Bagwell.
For.
Councillor Steve Barron.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
Against.
Councillor John Beasley.
For.
Councillor Derek Borthwick.
For.
Councillor Philip Broadhead.
For.
Councillor.
For.
Councillor David Brown. Sorry, Councillor David Brown. Sorry, Councillor Brown. I'll come back to Councillor Brown. Councillor Simon Bull.
For.
Councillor Richard Burton.
For.
Councillor Diana Butler.
Abstain.
Councillor Daniel Butt.
For.
Councillor Judy Butt.
For.
Councillor Eddie Coop.
For.
Councillor Mike Cox.
Against.
Councillor Malcolm Davies.
For.
Councillor Norman Decent.
For.
Councillor Leslie Dedman.
For.
Councillor Brian Dion.
For.
Councillor Bobby Dove.
For.
Councillor Beverly Dunlop.
For.
Councillor Millie Earl.
Against.
Councillor Jackie Edwards.
For.
Councillor LJ Evans.
For.
Councillor George Farquhar.
Against, and I would like my vote recorded, please.
Councillor Dwayne Farr.
For.
Councillor Lawrence Fear.
For.
Councillor Anne Filer.
For.
Councillor David Flagg.
Against.
Councillor Nick Geary.
For.
Councillor Mike Green.
For.
Councillor Nicola Green.
For.
Councillor Andy Hadley.
For.
Councillor May Haynes. Sorry, Councillor May Haynes. Thank you.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Hedges.
For.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Mark Howell.
For.
Councillor Mohan Iyengar.
For.
Councillor Cheryl Johnson.
For.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Jane Kelly.
For.
Councillor David Kelsey.
For.
Councillor Bob Lawton.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Marion Lepedevin.
Reluctantly for.
Councillor Lisa Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Rachel Maidment.
Abstain.
Councillor Chris Matthews.
For.
Councillor Simon McCormack.
For.
Councillor Drew Miller.
For.
Councillor Pete Miles.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Moore.
4.
Councillor Lisa Northover.
4.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
4.
Councillor Susan Phillips.
4.
Councillor Margaret Phipps.
Against.
Councillor Karen Rampton.
4.
Councillor Felicity Rice.
4.
Councillor Chris Rigby.
Abstain.
Councillor Roberto Rocco.
4.
Councillor Vicky Slade.
4.
Councillor Anne Stribley.
4.
Councillor Tony Trent.
A reluctant 4.
Councillor Mike White.
4.
Councillor Lawrence Williams.
4.
Councillor Kieran Wilson.
4.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor David Brown, have you rejoined? I think. Did you hear enough of the debate? Is Councillor Brown available? Sorry, it appears I may have. Yes, I thought I did. I did ask Councillor Peter Hall. I recorded. I think so. Councillor Peter Hall, I've recorded your vote as 4. Can I just confirm that? 4. Yes, thank you. It was very quiet. Councillor Brown, we have lost off the call. Yes, everybody's voting. Okay, thank you. We'll pass the votes to the chairman.
Members have the result of the vote, and there's 457, against 9, and abstentions 4. So that motion is carried. If members would just bear with me for one moment before I move on. Members, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll be back with you in 5 minutes. Thank you. welcome back, members. We now move on to questions from councillors. I would just remind members that the time allowed for councillors to ask questions under this rule is a maximum of 30 minutes. And I've asked the officer to set the clock rolling when the first councillor speaks, and at the end of the 30 minutes I will close the meeting. So the first person on the list to ask the question is Councillor Mark Howell. Councillor Mark Howell, please.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I'm just trying to swap between screens to find the question. Okay, a recent active travel press release by the council stated that the keyhole bridge measures are to be removed as ward councillors have received reports from local residents of incidents between pedestrians and cyclists, and also of motorcyclists taking advantage of the closure to considerably increase their speed, causing danger to pedestrians, close quote. Did the transportation portfolio holder receive a report from officers analysing and advising on the impact of the measures on public safety prior to making his decision, or did he only act on anecdotal reports from ward councillors and residents? Question 2, why were Poole Town councillors who are supportive of the closure not consulted, considering the bridge spans the boundary of Poole Town and Parkstone wards? And 3, what are the percentages for and against closure of consultation responses filed since implementation of the measures?
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Councillor Mike Green, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I thank Councillor Howell for his questions. I've been involved in various discussions about Keyhole Bridge with officers, councillors and members of the public. Most of these have involved the subject of public safety, amongst other items. I've also examined the reported collisions at and around the bridge. These include the latest incident between a motor vehicle and a pedestrian or cyclist, which occurred in 2013. I would note that the relevant guidance for Keyhole Bridge ETRO, Local Transport Note 120 Cycle Infrastructure Design, clearly states that effective engagement with the local community, particularly at an early stage, is essential to ensuring the political and public acceptance of any scheme. The Department for Transport advises engagement as good practice even when there is no legal requirement to do so for the measures being proposed. This was clearly not undertaken by the previous administration in the case of Keyhole Bridge and the other closures introduced under the Tranche 1 of the Emergency Active Travel Fund. The road closure is in Parkstone ward, very close to its boundary with Poole Town ward. All homes in close proximity to the closure lie in Parkstone ward. However, all Poole Town ward councillors were invited to a meeting on Friday, 9th of October 2020 to discuss the topic of traffic through Poole Park, including the Keyhole Bridge measure. It's unfortunate that Councillor Howell couldn't attend, although his views were previously recorded and considered. The other 2 Poole Town ward councillors did attend. In the 7-week period of closure up to 8th of October, when it was reported that I would not support it continuing, around 48% of the consultation responses received were in support of the closure, with 49% opposing it. After my public announcement that I hoped to reopen the route, further responses were received, which was 79% in support of the closure and 18% against. Taking into account all responses, 60% are in support, 37% opposed. As someone who believes passionately that BCP's congestion problems can only be solved by a significant modal shift to sustainable transport, the ETRO fiasco has been thoroughly depressing. If we are going to achieve the necessary behaviour change, we need to take the public with us. The crass way the previous administration introduced the Tranche 1 measures, including Keyhole Bridge, did precisely the opposite. It set neighbour against neighbour and reignited the conflict between motorists and cyclists, which we've spent years trying to diffuse. Thankfully, the new administration's more balanced approach and promise to do better seems to have persuaded government not to carry out their threat to disallow further active travel funding to councils, which behaved like BCP did in the summer. And we have been awarded over £1 million for Tranche 2. We now have to persuade the public that we can invest it better than our predecessors did. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Did you have a supplementary at all? You're on mute, Councillor Howell.
Sorry. Firstly, a correction. If one looks at the electoral boundaries, the boundary runs along between Poole Town and Parkstone wards. It runs along that road through the middle of the bridge. So it is as much in Poole Town ward as it is in Parkstone ward. And in relation to the meeting he referred to, that meeting was not advertised as a meeting to discuss Keyhole Bridge. It was a meeting to discuss Poole Park. But I appreciate that he welcome his commitment to consultation, and having been in a meeting with him today, where I'm prepared to believe that
Howell,
he is going to continue.
Councillor Howell, did you have a question?
Yeah. No, I was
Okay.
just going to give him the benefit of the doubt going forward.
Thank you very much. Other members have questions to ask. I'll move on then to Councillor Mike Cox, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Conservative reset paper, which led to this administration, set out a significant income for the council from investments and the sale of community bonds. Can the leader explain how such income can be relied on to provide a sound source of income for the council at this scale?
Councillor Mellor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Cox, for acknowledging that the Conservative reset paper led to this administration. Councillor Cox, you and I have both been vocal about further investments being the right approach for BCP Council to take in its economic environment. So I look forward to your support as we bring forward an ambitious investment agenda that grows both our capital asset base as well as improves our revenue position yearly. This was described in our budget reset paper as a generations fund, with the principle being that future investment profit was netted off against council tax deductions. The principle being that a sound investment strategy not only benefited this generation through reduced council tax, but also served to benefit the next generation, as there was a commitment to leaving behind a significantly increased asset base than we inherited. The ambition behind the community bond was to generate significant investment power in relation to carbon reduction projects to underline this council and indeed this administration's commitment to our climate and ecological emergency, where we intend to deliver measurable actions and not rhetoric. Our reset paper also netted this income off against expenditure on these projects. So in both cases, the Generations Fund and our environmental C&B income nets off fully against expenditure, so is entirely reliable and sound, with nil impact on the MTFP at any point.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Councillor Cox, did you have a supplementary in respect of the answer provided by Councillor Mellor?
Yes, please, just a quick one. You clearly said that the costs of this are being offset against the profits effectively. But if you're making a net profit of £2.2 million, which I think you've said, that would seem to imply that you're raising funds or bonds of circa 50 million, who knows? Can you just explain, exactly how much you intend to raise and actually how you intend to spend the money, if that's possible?
Thank you very much, Chair. You'd like me to respond? You said that it was to be netted off against profit. It's not against its profit, but expenditure. So both of these items net off against each other. So that if there was no profit, you wouldn't have any council tax reduction. If there was no C&B raised, you wouldn't have the extra money raised. So it nets off entirely. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. The next question is from Councillor Mike Brook. Councillor Mike Brook, please.
Fine, thank you, Chair. Councillor Mellor, you've made much of your reset paper at both Overview and Scrutiny Board and Full Council, as well as publicly. If I have read it correctly, you claim significant savings, at least 48 million over a 3-year period, can be made through an ambitious transformation programme, and that these savings can then fund your proposed spending commitments. How realistic is this?
Councillor Mellor.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you for the question, Councillor Brook. The KPMG report uses a savings target of 43.9 million. and this is now adopted as our minimum requirement. So I would comfortably suggest that savings in this region are realistic. Our reset paper included a phase 0 suggestion approach ahead of the 3-year window of achieving the full transformation savings programme. This phase 0 approach was in part adopted by the previous administration in delivering savings as part of the COVID response. For clarity, the MTFP now proposes a savings target of £15 million in 21-22 and a further £9.1 million in both 22-23 and 23-24. These savings are transformational, recurring, and do enable this authority to move forward with confidence in terms of delivering both the most modern of councils, but also towards a position of investment in much needed frontline priorities. This is why our administration's commitment to delivering this programme is both long-standing and hugely important.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Did you have a supplementary, Councillor Brooke?
Yes, I have, Chair. I thank the leader for his response to my question. I have to say I do find it a little bit difficult to have a great deal of faith in the answer when I note basic additions and subtractions across table 1 of the reset paper, and you give no indication of the costs involved in executing them. Since the transformation budget appears to be spent on things other than transformation, I seek clarification. How will the transformation programme be funded? In your answer, please explain what that will mean for the transformation budget, including the total costs the council will face.
Councillor Mellor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So I'll refer Councillor Brooke to the paper that went through the Cabinet recently, and we've taken through overview and scrutiny in terms of the MTFP. So we've been quite clear on what our financial strategy is, and that is to take some more borrowing. So as an element of the transformation costs that will be funded through borrowing. At no point has this administration changed by 1 penny the total cost of transformation. What we've done is how we're going to fund it.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. The next question is from Councillor Tony Trent. Councillor Trent, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm that this is one of the 2 questions I've submitted? It's done in order of receipt, is it?
Yes.
Yes. Right. Local youth offending figures for 2018-19 presented to the Police and Crime Commissioners panel earlier this year present clear signs that areas with open access youth provision have a lower level of offending than areas without such provision. This is reflected nationally. Professional youth workers have also been able to spot emerging issues with young people often before their schools do. With this in mind, and the clear stated aim of putting community safety and the reduction of crime and disorder in the BCP area at the top of the agenda, will the portfolio holder and Cabinet give a clear commitment to restart open access youth provision post-COVID-19 and use the skills and experience of youth workers employed by BCP Council and retain them to extend the provision to the whole of the BCP area using the most practical means available?
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Can I call on Councillor Mike White to respond, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Trent, for your question. The current BCP youth offer has 3 core elements. It has positive activities, detached youth work, and individual short-term targeted youth work sessions. Now, under the current COVID restrictions, the Council's unable to offer open access positive activities and is instead providing small group work sessions for youth support by invitation only. These sessions are provided by BCP using a mixed delivery model of both in-house youth work provision and commission provision. The Council also delivers detached youth work across BCP, as well as one-to-one individual sessions on request. Youth workers are also part of our team working to identify early opportunities for youth work support to schools. At the current time, the Council is unable to confirm when open access positive activities will restart. However, we are committed to restarting as soon as guidance allows. Now, looking ahead post-COVID, I will certainly consider at that time whether a review of the current delivery model for positive activities should be undertaken and how this can be as inclusive as possible. It's clear that the provision of positive activities is far greater than simply open access youth centre sessions, and it can include many activities outside of a centre base. BCP has strong voluntary sector-led groups that the council can build upon for young people. So it wouldn't be appropriate to give an unqualified commitment to the extension of a BCP-led open access positive activities offer at this time, given both the uncertainty of the future of open access provision and the need for a full and inclusive review of the current mixed delivery model. However, BCP remains committed to providing the current offer within COVID restrictions and ensuring that the youth offer is able to adapt and adjust to provide a variety of high quality youth work interventions for young people across the BCP area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Trent, did you have a supplementary question in respect of the answer provided?
Yes, my supplementary is really seeking clarity that there were figures provided that did clearly demonstrate that where young people who wanted to attend a youth club could go to a youth club, and that they can't all be operated by volunteers, although I'm involved in overseeing a volunteer-run youth club, but that still depends on professional youth workers. So would that support continue to be available? And where there are areas where there is a serious need for intervention, and I can think of 2 areas of Poole and possibly a couple in Bournemouth that need more than a minimal amount of intervention, that maintaining services that can be accessed by all young people in the area, will that be considered to be a material consideration when looking at the future of youth provision?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to thank Tony Trent for consider his point post-COVID. But I would say we are very fortunate at the moment in having good children's centres, we have good youth provision, and we have good early years providers. But I would like to remind Councillor Trent, we have inherited an overspend of some 6 million in children's services this year. So I will need quite a lot of convincing before committing to any additional discretionary expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. The next question, councillors, is from Councillor Marianne Lepoidovin. Councillor Lepoidovin.
Thank you, Chair. This question, bear in mind, like the others, was submitted before the full council meeting and to some extent has been superseded by the very helpful briefing that the portfolio holder gave us last week, I think it was. But nevertheless, I would like to submit the question as written. I'm sure colleagues will join me in congratulating Marcus Rashford on his success in persuading the government to reverse their initial refusal to provide funding during the Christmas holidays for food for children who are eligible for free school meals in term time. I'm pleased that BCP Council agreed to do what they could at half term for families in this position, following pressure from many residents and councillors. And especially thank those businesses and individuals who responded to. Because this was only taken at short notice after schools had already closed for half term, it is likely that some in need fell through the cracks and got no help. The government announcement means that there is sufficient time to put in place a more structured approach. I'm therefore seeking assurance that not only every family with children eligible for free school meals, but also all those not normally eligible, but now in serious need, will receive suitable help. Thinking particularly of households who have faced a severe loss of income and are without recourse to public funds.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lepoidovin. Can I call upon Councillor Nicola Green to respond, please?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Lepoidovin for her question, which is extremely timely. I know you had expected to ask it a couple of weeks ago, but actually this is a great time to be sending out that information. And can I also thank all those members who did attend the briefing that we put together last week. The government have announced £170 million to be provided nationally through the COVID Winter Grant Scheme. This aims to support children, family and our most vulnerable residents over the winter period. The grant was allocated to councils to allow them to directly help the hardest hit families and individuals provide food for children who need it over the holidays. This recognises councils as being best placed to understand which groups to support. The allocation for BCP Council is £1.068 million, which covers the period up until the end of March next year. And as such, planning in relation to free school meals must take into account not only the Christmas holidays, which are coming up, but also the February half term, which is a very difficult time for families. BCP is working across council and in partnership with key third sector partners to ensure a scheme is put in place that not only delivers free school meals to those who are eligible, but also enables professionals to refer in families and individuals who need this support. In line with the aims of the grant funding, this will seek not only to cover food costs, but also to help with bills and access to positive activities. Further details of the scheme has been shared with schools, communities, groups, and of course at the members' briefing last week. And I'm very grateful to those who've made the use of their contacts and social media to extend that reach. Essentially, flexible school meal vouchers for eligible children will be issued to cover the school holiday periods between December and the end of March at a rate of £15 per child per week for use in most supermarkets. Registration is being taken through the schools, who are reaching out assertively to the families who need this support. In addition to those who are eligible to free school meals, those with younger non-school age children, for example, or other vulnerable family members, there's other food support provision, which can be found on the Together We Can webpage. There's a wealth of offers from the community groups, food banks and community fridges. Schools and community champions have also been provided with this information so that they can assist those who aren't digitally enabled. And I would like to thank all those who've been involved. It has been a truly magnificent community response, but it can only be as good as our ability to reach all those in need. Chairman, albeit slightly beyond the specifics of Councillor Pedfin's question, but very much within the same scope, I'll also mention the access to winter warmth support, which sits alongside food provision for those families who really are the most in need. Local Citizens Advice will be providing a dedicated phone line to support residents with keeping warm through a range of measures, including prepayment vouchers to help with the winter warmth costs until the end of March next year. And these might include utility bills, water for household purposes, or indeed other essentials that help with food and winter warmth, including the provision of warm clothing, heater, boiler services, for example, in recognition that a range of costs may arise which directly affect a household's ability to afford or access food, energy and water. And lastly, may I please remind you to remind your residents of the Let's Talk Money scheme, which is also run by Citizens Advice, providing support and signposting for people who might be struggling with financial pressure over the winter months. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Lepoidovin, did you have a supplementary at all for in respect of the answer provided?
I will waive my rights to a supplementary in view of the time and the outstanding questions. We've had a very full answer from Councillor Green. I could provide a supplementary or several, but I think it would be fairer to move on and let other questions have an airing. So thank you, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Councillor. The next question is from Councillor Felicity Rice. Councillor Rice, please.
Hi, thank you very much. I think Councillor Green may have answered this in overview and scrutiny this week, but the question is, the public consultation on the Climate Action Plan was ready to go live on the 30th of September this year. Can you please update us on this piece of public consultation?
Councillor Mike Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Rice, for your question. As the Cabinet Member for Transport and Sustainability, BCP's response to the climate change emergency is an extremely important part of my responsibilities. I believe it's important that the annual report on the Council's climate action is endorsed and recommended to Council, not just by myself, but by Cabinet as a whole, and I intend to request this at the next on December the 16th. This is an ideal opportunity to launch the public engagement on our 2050 BCP area climate action plan, to which Councillor Rice refers, and so I intend to ask Cabinet to approve that at the same meeting. Provided the Cabinet gives its approval, the public engagement will be launched the following day. It will be online for 8 weeks, and I would encourage our residents and other stakeholders to participate. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank officers, members and Councillor Rice in particular for helping us to get to this stage on both the annual report and the public engagement survey.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor, have a supplementary at all?
Yes, thank you for your support. I was just wondering whether you will, I think everybody knows that I'm particularly interested in this, and I'm really interested in engagement with the community. I was wondering whether you would allow me access to the consultation document to provide some minor comments prior to it being minor comments to be considered this week, along with other members from the previous cross-party climate action working group that may be interested for these comments to be considered this week prior to Cabinet.
Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chairman. The excuse me. The paper should already be published as an appendix to the Cabinet paper, although I recognise that they weren't at overview and scrutiny last night. But I would expect those to be coming forward, and obviously, as usual, I'm sure that the Leader of the Council will be taking comments from members at the Cabinet meeting when it comes to the appropriate item. Thank you, Chairman.
Great, thank you.
Green. Thank you, Councillor Roy. Question is from Councillor Andy Hadley. Councillor Hadley, please.
Thank you, Chair. A recent Environment Agency report on water companies rated our local supplier, Wessex Water, as good, apart from their handling of stormwater overflow drainage. We've been approached by local fishermen concerned about food poisoning outbreaks, which they tracked as closely related to and following periods of heavy rainfall when the Wessex water system overflows. When in administration, we called on the Environment Agency to work with Wessex Water to increase stormwater capacity to prevent dumping of raw sewage into our harbours. Can the portfolio holder please advise how BCP Council are continuing to work with the Environment Agency and Wessex Water to understand the scale of the problem, to determine the impact on the natural environment, tourism and the food chain, and to act on solutions to end the discharge of raw sewage into our rivers and harbours, and to recognise and resolve the pressures of permitting connections for new developments making this issue worse? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Mark Anderson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to thank Councillor Hadley for raising this issue. I can assure him and all members that addressing this long-term issue, but worsening issue, is a priority for me and this administration. We continue to meet with Wessex Water and the Environment Agency to understand the issue and current programmes of research and investment. He will be aware that the Council is not the regulatory authority for water quality, and that the legislative framework is determined by central government working through the Environment Agency. The government has made clear that the water companies need to act more quickly to improve water quality in our rivers and waters. And the Environment Minister, Rebecca Powell, has set up a DEFRA task force on storm overflows. We are in contact with this task force and have raised the specific concerns of Poole Harbour, as well as continuing to make the case for increased investment in storm drainage infrastructure with Wessex Water. We continue to raise this issue and work with local stakeholders on Poole Harbour Catchment Initiative, and we will also intend to hold a member briefing on this issue when regulatory service pressures ease in the new year.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Hadley, did you have a supplementary in respect of the answer provided?
Yes, I do. Thank you. The problem isn't just about Poole Harbour, it's also about Christchurch, because the Service Against Sewerage have highlighted that Avon Run Beach is also heavily affected by this problem. It is a national issue, and Conservative MP Philip Dunn has laid a private member's bill to Parliament to tackle the sewage discharge. Will the portfolio holder please commit to writing to our 5 local MPs to ask them to back the bill due for its second reading on the 15th of January? And can he also please commit to getting focus with partners on fixing this problem? Obviously, it hazard to human health, the food chain and our leisure use of our fantastic coastline. And to me, it's a much higher priority than nitrogen fixation in the rural area. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may continue, I'd like to thank Councillor Hadley for the supplementary. I agree with him about Christchurch Beach. In fact, I have specifically asked about the Christchurch Beach, and if I may, I'd like to read some information I have received from the Environment Agency about this. It says, there are 7 permitted storm overflows that intermittently discharge upstream of Christchurch Avon Beach as a response of wet weather. one of which is at Holdenhurst Sewage Treatment Works. All 7 sites have bathing water conditions specifically included in the environment permit. The bathing water status of this beach is currently excellent, and one of the consequences of this is that there isn't a formal driver under the legislation to compel the water company to make improvements to the discharge potential affecting the bathing water. However, Wessex Water undertook some work exploring the willingness of their customers to pay for environmental improvements, and this is a result of an improvement scheme being included in the company's environmental investment programme for 2020-2025. The scheme involves building additional storage around 8,000 metres cubed to reduce spills to 2 per bathing session on average by March 2025. It will also provide some resilience for the Bournemouth sewage network. I would also like to add to that I will certainly ask and write a letter with the aid of my officers to all the 5 MPs, asking and urging them to support the bill. And if I can liaise with Councillor Hadley outside this meeting, I'm sure we can agree some suitable words as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. The next question is from Councillor LJ Evans, please.
Chair, can I just confirm that we are allowed to go over the 30-minute time frame?
Sorry, Councillor. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, can I just confirm that we're being allowed now to go over the 30-minute time frame?
Yes,
so I
have asked you to ask your question, Councillor Evans. So,
but
please,
I asked my
carry on.
question. Will Councillor Slade be able to ask hers?
Can I just confirm that the ruling in the Constitution is for 30 minutes? However, it's at the chairman's discretion whether the chairman wishes to allow further questions. If we could make it as quick as the questions that have already been asked and answered, I think we'll get through all of them. So please carry on, Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much. So last week, when this question was written, Poole Town councillors were informed of the cancellation of the New Year's bathtub race just a couple of hours before the press release was sent out. Whilst we understand the reasons behind the decision, there was plenty of time for us to have been consulted. In his leadership speech, Councillor Mellor promised us a council which is collaborative and fair, collaborative in a way in which we value the voices and opinions of those who work with us. Therefore, please may we have assurance that in future, ward councillors will be involved in decisions impacting their residents.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Iyengar, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Okay, Councillor Evans, you heard pretty well very shortly after I did. We're committed to being collaborative and fair. For the bathtub race, it was a joint decision by the Poole Harbour Commissioners and council officers. The type of event, the bathtub race, as I'm sure you know, the type of event it is, it's pretty clear cut. There's not any room to sort of manoeuvre it. And it was cancelled on the grounds of health and safety during COVID-19 restrictions. And the scope to vary the decision or do anything alternative was near zero. Ward councillors were informed quickly after I was informed, in fact, literally just after I was informed, although I accept you might have not liked to have known sooner. From the contacts I have along Poole Quay, which are considerable, and from the media coverage, it doesn't appear there's been any adverse reaction to the way this has been decided or communicated. If this event might have had alternatives for its timing or delivery, we'd have considered them and consulted. And this is, and I pledge this is what we'll look to do generally as our events programme restarts in 2021. I think I will just add to this. That's my written response to this for the record. I think what I'll add, Councillor Evans, is the spirit of, you know, what I've given you there is a standard response. What I'll say from the heart is that it is absolutely our intention to collaborate on these events, and sometimes we'll be constrained by you know, commercial sensitivities if there's, you know, we're appointing a contractor or something for it, but we're looking to take up considerably our number of events in 2021. We're going to be positive. There's a risk, you know, will the vaccine work or will it not work? how much can people distance or not distance, and how soon can that happen? But we're going to be positive about this, and we're going to expand the number of events, and we will be.
Thank you very much, Councillor Inigar.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Evans, did you have a supplementary on the answer provided?
No, and I really appreciate what you've said. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much. The next question then is from Councillor Vicky Slade. Councillor Slade, please.
Thank you, Chair. We are fortunate in Dorset to have an incredible charity that supports children through loss or bereavement, and I can speak from personal experience with my own child having been supported by their specialist programme at the age of 7 following a close family death. Along with many other councillors, I was shocked to receive confirmation from Mosaic that BCP Council is now restricting support to families that are already known to our early help services, rather than being funded via a contract with specialist workers assessing the need for support direct from a school or family referral. What assurance can the portfolio holder provide around the provision of a contracted service for the whole of BCP to ensure that every child in need can be assessed for this life-changing service, as previously was the case when he was portfolio holder in Borough of Poole and continues to be the means of funding in the Dorset Council area?
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Mike White, please.
Yes, thank you again, Chairman. I do thank Councillor Mrs Slade for her question. The first point I'd like to make is that there does seem to be an awful lot of misinformation circulating on this subject. So can I please make it absolutely clear this support is open to any child, regardless of whether or not they are already known to us. Can I also make it clear the Council remains absolutely committed to working with Mosaic in providing support for children in dealing with the ongoing impact of bereavement. We had different approaches in the previous 3 authorities and are now establishing a single consistent contractual arrangement for the whole of BCP. Greater clarity has been brought to the routes by which families can be referred into this service. This allows for all families across BCP to be signposted and supported with access, but it also recognises that the funding for this may come from a number of sources, including, of course, the council, indeed health services, schools, or possibly the family themselves. Now, the aim of all this is not, please don't shake your head, Councillor Slade, the aim of this is not to restrict or deny services where they're needed, but to ensure that agencies work effectively together to support families to get the support. Officers have recently met with representatives from Mosaic and have committed to work with them to provide reassurance that no families will be disadvantaged by these changes. In summary, this is about harmonisation across the original 3 councils. It's about streamlining the access point and providing consistency. It is also about getting other agencies to step up to their responsibilities to provide some funding. I am determined that budget will not be a constraint and that any child that needs help will get the help they need.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Slade, did you have a supplementary at all?
I do have a supplementary. The Chief Executive of the charity has confirmed that since the start of October, they've received 67 referrals for their service, which will involve around 70 to 80 children. Schools have been told directly that BCP will no longer fund them. And bearing in mind that our early help services, which is the new route through which families will have to be assessed by our overstretched social care team, would it not make sense to actually make a commitment through the COVID grant that's been given specifically around additional services that are needed as a result of the changes to COVID, to give that funding by grant for 2021 and 2022 from that COVID grant? The total funded cost in 1920 was 36,000. So this sum should certainly be possible to fund if, as I understand it, the council are no longer stepping in and providing funding for free school meals in the school holidays. So can I specifically ask the portfolio holder to make a commitment to fund the amount that is required as per the last 2 years?
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Mike White.
Yeah, thank you. I think I can. Yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you. I really only repeat my earlier statement. Any child that needs it will get the help that they need. I have asked what has happened over the last 6 weeks to a couple of months since we took over the administration, and I'm told that during this period, no children have been turned away from the service. So
I
if
will put you in touch with them.
Excuse me, Councillor
can I
Slade.
please finish? So if Councillor Slade has examples of children who have been turned away, please let me have them. Thank you.
I have, and they're horrifying.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Thank you, Councillor White. Moving on swiftly then, Councillor Tony Trent, please.
Thank you, Chair. Remembering how much controversy was generated following the award of the first tranche of active travel funding at the height of the previous lockdown, before the virtual system was fully set up in BCP to enable proper meetings to take place, what are the arrangements to involve members in the second tranche? For example, will the Transport Advisory Group, on ice since late winter, be revived, possibly as a fully constituted advisory group with a politically balanced membership, making recommendations to the portfolio holder and cabinet, and once able to do so, giving the interested members of the public the chance to have their say at the meeting? This were a group with trained subs, a recommendation from the days when a similar committee operated in Poole, able to react swiftly. It could not only look at new proposals, it could also be the body that reviews the first tranche of ETRA schemes with representations from the public at the meeting if able at the time, as they reach their anniversary reviews. And could the portfolio holder confirm, without the tight deadlines imposed by government on tranche 1, that he will ensure in this tranche meaningful engagement with the public be undertaken? And can you let me know how it would be done? Thank you.
Councillor Mike Green, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Trent, for your question. It was extremely disappointing that when the first tranche of emergency active travel funding was allocated, BCP's then administration chose not to fully consult with either ward councillors nor residents before imposing road closures. My displeasure was clearly matched by the Secretary of State for Transport when he wrote to local authorities advising them that those like BCP, which had failed to pre-consult, were likely to miss out on tranche 2 funding. It was therefore a relief to hear that the new administration's more balanced approach and our plea to DFT not to be punished for our predecessors' actions found favour, and we've been allocated almost £1.1 million for active travel fund tranche 2 projects. As previously approved by Cabinet, the delegation to decide which schemes to take forward, now that we have the award, lies with the Director for Growth and Infrastructure, in consultation with the portfolio holder and the appropriate ward members. I'll be liaising with the Director and his officers over the next couple of weeks, and in fact, since the question was asked, I already have been, to decide which schemes from the proposed bid we now likely to take forward and then how to proceed. I can assure Councillor Trent that before we do any design work or make any final decisions, I'll be consulting with the relevant ward members and publicising our proposed consultation plan. We'll be able to use the new engagement platform recently procured by the Council to gain the views of the public, which will then inform the design process and detail of the programme to take forward. The timescales for delivery of this tranche of funding means that we'll only have to commit to delivery by March next year, and the schemes can be fully consulted on between now and then. Design and build will follow in the following financial year. This early involvement of ward councillors will not be limited to active travel fund spending. Instead, it will become the norm for all TROs. I'm currently developing a protocol with officers to ensure this functions efficiently and significantly shortens the excessive turnaround times which have been suffered by residents during the last 18 months. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Did you have a supplementary in respect of the answer provided?
Yes, I did. Trying to put aside all of the spin which I heard, because there were other councils of other persuasions throughout the country, including his own persuasion, that were working to exactly the same rules, and I've quoted those rules. You know, tranche one.
Your question, Councillor Trent?
Tranche one was different, but my question is the portfolio holder therefore saying that the idea of a transport advisory group, which involves a wider range of members and gives members of the public the chance to actually speak to a group of councillors, as was the case, for example, with a footpath dispute I had in the Alderney and Bourne Valley ward last year, where both sides put their case and members considered that case and made a recommendation which the portfolio holder then took forward. We've heard a lot about involving members more in the business of the council. Why is the idea of reviving the Transport Advisory Group, which was only revived a year or so ago, being dismissed?
So would you like to respond, Councillor Green? I'm not sure if that was one or two questions.
I'm not sure how many statements or questions it was, Mr. Chairman, but I'll thank Councillor Trent for them in any case. I think I've been very clear in my answer to the first question, and I've also shown it already in the 6 or 8 weeks or so since I've been put into post, that I'm very much prepared to involve ward members in the decisions which affect their wards, and I believe that that is the correct way to go forward. It is the sensible way, and I believe that we'll be able to turn around decisions considerably faster than they have been in the past by pursuing that course of action. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. And finally, the last question from Councillor Mark Howell. Councillor Howell, please.
Thank you, Chair. In recognition of your generous extension, I will only ask the first part of the question. The leader of the council stated in his nomination speech at the last full council meeting that his administration's open quotes first 100-day plan would actively address close quotes various issues, including the economy, jobs, our school children, and bring back a feeling of pride and safety in our towns. Over 50 days have passed without this plan being published. Will the leader be publishing the plan before the 100 days expire?
Leader, Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Mark, for the question. Significant work has been undertaken in terms of the aims and ambitions brought about as referenced in the nomination speech, and I'm pleased to say that this has resulted in material investment, hundreds of thousands of pounds of investment.
Yeah, can I make the point that the leader is not answering the question? He seems to be promoting himself rather than asking the very simple question
Chairman,
of whether he's publishing the plan.
Members, we're nearly there. We're nearly there. It is the season of goodwill. Councillor Mellor, would you please answer the question so that we can bring the meeting to a close?
Mr. Chairman, can the leader please start from the beginning, because we were interrupted and we want to get the whole
Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you.
Councillor Mellor.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's every time I have a question from Councillor Howell, I get interrupted in the middle of my answer. If he doesn't like it, that's his problem. But I do have a duty to respond to these questions, because they are made in the public. So I will. Thank you very much, Councillor Butt. I will start from the beginning of my response. Thank you for the question, Mark. Significant work has been undertaken in terms of the aims and ambitions brought about as reference in my nomination speech, and I'm pleased to say that this has resulted in material investment, over £370,000 of investment coming forward to Cabinet in the next cycle. This not only demonstrates what we've been saying consistently, but it is not okay to sacrifice the funding of our community needs. It is imperative that we show leadership to our communities out of this pandemic, and that if we have strong control of the council finances, we can afford to deliver that leadership. Examples of these commitments include increased budget for mental health, cleanliness and safety, as we make a commitment to restore pride to our place, particularly commitment to our levelling up agenda in Christchurch, where cleanliness services have been consistently underfunded, including in the previous administration, investment in communities and culture and the environment, and not least support for our economy, something this administration is proud to champion. We are delivering both in this financial year and we'll deliver further in 21-22. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor, for your response and answer. It only remains for me.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you supplementary?
I thought you waived your supplementary.
No, not the second part of the question, not my supplementary. I waived.
I'd look forward to answering the supplementary, Chair. So if you
okay, Councillor Howell.
Yeah, I'd say, given that already the leader has established a record of repeatedly making statements in his council in full
Chairman,
council
where
meetings
is the question?
that he does
Chairman,
not
where is the
honour,
question?
then is there any
Chairman,
reason?
Councillor
This is
Howe,
totally out of
Is
order.
there any reason? This is a supplementary. Is there any reason that the public should have any confidence in him or his administration?
Better than yours.
And I thank the councillor for that comment. We've been asked a question in terms of confidence. I think we've had a clear version of confidence in an administration you were the deputy leader of, and Councillor Slade, we had a vote in no confidence in that administration. So I would like to say, I believe that both the public and this council chamber have significantly more confidence in an administration led by me, and inclusive of more members than your administration was in. I'm not entirely sure what much else was a question in terms of confidence. We've had a clear statement through this council, this next cabinet paper, in terms of a significant commitment around our 100-day plan. We're really proud to be delivering it, and we're going to look forward to delivering further in 21-22. Thank you very much.
Chair, I must say,
thank you, Councillor Mellor. Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Yet again, it's a very late evening. It is the season of goodwill, and I would like to wish all the members and officers a happy Christmas and a safe and peaceful 2021. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.